I love summer. I've made no bones about the fact I love summer. With each passing year, I love summer even more. I love the activities of it. I love the relaxation of it. I love the weather of it. I love the sunshine of it. I love the late days of it. I love the not having to scrape your windshield of it. I love the I'm not having to find out where I put my gloves of it. I love the do I need an umbrella? No, I don't because it hasn't rained. I love all of it. I love everything about summer. And yes, I realize that the summers are getting shorter and shorter seemingly. I know they're not literally, but, kids going back to school earlier. I know that you have year-round school and that schedule's different. But there are certain things that remind me that summer is coming to an end that I'm not going to say upset me, but that are stark reminders because then I'm like, oh gosh, we are a blink of an eye from those 5:45 sunsets where then by like 8:30 at night you feel like it's 2 a.m. and it's cold outside. However, and I know that this is probably a soft launch and a fake summit, but this week it's starting to feel like those awesome Saturdays in October when the weather's perfect and the leaves are changing and the air is just a little bit crisp, but so still sunny out. And there are big-time college football games going on, and you're getting set for the National Football League. And to an extent, all of that's true. Now, weather-wise, it usually isn't like this at this point. And I think we'll go back to some hot days. But when it feels right now outside like the middle of October, from a weather standpoint, you know that is a fake tease or a little bit premature in terms of that. But what is not is the fact that football is here. Football is here from the high school standpoint. We have college games getting set to get underway, some of them from a national standpoint, massive. And then, obviously, the NFL a week from Sunday. And what we know now is that the Colts have their roster, at least theoretically, their 53-man roster becoming official some 20 hours ago when they had to submit it to the NFL. And there really is only one big surprise, in my opinion. And it's probably not even a major surprise when you consider that the best ability is availability. And a year ago, Chris Ballard basically said, when talking about a young room, one of the areas for his football team that was inexperienced, he said, and I said yesterday, and I think that maybe I wasn't as clear in the way I was saying it as I needed to be. But one of the things yesterday that I gave credit towards Chris Ballard regarding, and I've been critical of Chris Ballard, all of us have, one of the areas where I gave him credit was when everyone was clamoring for strength, solidarity, numbers, addition, some sort of proven entity within his defensive backfield, Chris Ballard basically said, look, guys, I've got to see what I have in these guys. I've got to see what I have in these guys. And so then, after saying that, he basically said, I'll get back to you, but I need a year to truly evaluate where we are. And after that year, I will give him credit because a couple of things happened. Number one, I think he saw a couple of guys that he said, okay, I think these guys can play. Rodney Thomas as a safety, again, a depth piece. Nick Cross, who was a guy that they essentially went out and just fell in love with his athleticism and decided to see if they could turn that into a player. It looks like now it's starting to come together for him. And then he went out and said, yeah, I'm going to have to go out and actually shore up this unit because I had the year of assessment. And now that I've had the year of assessment, I can go out and say, okay, I need to get other players. I got to give a hard look at Jonathan Edwards. I like what I saw in Jalen Jones, but he's been banged up, but he is worth keeping in that mix. Obviously, we know, it goes without saying that Kenny Moore, what is brought to the table there. But he goes out and he gets Bynum, and he gets Howard, and he gets Ward. The big surprise yesterday in the roster, and it's not a total shock, but I'll admit where I was wrong in this regard. I have been very intrigued by Juju Brents. I have really liked what I've seen from Juju Brents. I love his athleticism. I love his size. I love his story. But at the same time, the best ability is availability. And he has not been, at no fault of his, but injuries have derailed his career to this point. And as a result, just 2 years after being drafted by the Colts, Juju Brents was probably yesterday's biggest surprise omission on the roster. And if you want to know what inability does for you, look no further than the fact that you have Juju Brents, who was a guy that they had taken at a position of great need in I think a third round 2 years ago, and he's not even on the roster anymore. And then at the quarterback position, the guy that the franchise was handed to, and Anthony Richardson, because he has not been able to play in terms of availability because of injury as well. Now, obviously, he's been replaced as the starting quarterback, and it remains to be seen what happens there. We've got a packed show today. It is a largely football show, even though we should mention the fact that the Fever got a big win last night. We'll talk to Eddie about that in just a second. But Tom Dienhart going to join us on today's program, talking a little Purdue football, as we've talked a lot about Indiana, Curt Cignetti, what the Hoosiers could do now. And when it comes to the Boilermakers, new coach, I don't think that we really have any idea where exactly and what exactly Purdue is going to be. I think we know that they're going to be better. I mean, they can't really be worse than they've been the last couple of years, but are there going to be steps? Tom Dienhart will join us with that. There are two programs of college football in the city of Indianapolis, two, that are scholarship programs, UND and Marian. UND, preseason number 15 in the Division II polls. Marian, preseason number 23 in the NAIA polls, a national championship under their belt. Those two teams going to square off this year, which is cool. And Ted Karras Jr., the head coach of the Marian Knights, going to join us on the program today. Also, Rhett Lewis will join us. We can talk NFL and some college with Rhett Lewis as well. But, Eddie, before we begin all of that, let's get two thoughts from you. The first being the Colts roster, at least for now, the tentative final roster. Any surprises for you other than the Juju Brents situation?
None really. I thought Isaiah Land was one of those guys who was a 50-50 roster guy. You know, he could make it, but you could also see that he would not make it. I think outside of Juju, nothing else really, shocking to me. I'm more interested to see what they do if they make any waiver claims, because on the morning show, Kevin Bowen and James Boyd were highlighting this, that, typically Chris Ballard and company, they don't go out and claim guys off waivers based off of need. They go out and claim guys based off of that they like them in the draft, and they may have gotten, waived, and they bring him in and try to figure it out from a roster mechanic standpoint. But with that being said, we highlighted it yesterday toward the end of the program, Jake. 4 total linebackers on the roster for the Colts. Only 3 of them would be active for week number 1 because of Jalen Carlisle being on injured reserve. Is that a position that the franchise feels like they need to, address via waiver claim? And a kind of an underrated one, could a pass-catching running back be a need for the Indianapolis Colts, Jake? Because you don't really know the status of Tyler Goodson right now with that elbow injury.
No, you're right.
So it's just Jonathan Taylor, and from what, we all know what Jonathan Taylor is and is not. He is a great runner, not a great pass catcher.
You know who's right there in the wings, should they need him?
DJ Giddens obviously made the roster cut, but
That's right. Yeah, if he gets the call, he'll leave the dormitory. But I believe Ulysses is ready to bring back, if you would. He'll ride in on his horse. Ulysses Bentley IV did not make the roster, unfortunately. But I think probably will still be playing football for some time. Last night, impressive win for the Fever when Kelsey Mitchell continues to really play well for them, Eddie. I know that that's kind of stating the obvious, but a lot of credit needs to go there, because when, and this was not like beating up on, say, Chicago. I mean, Seattle is a team that is right there where the Fever are in terms of standings, wins and losses, and that was a significant win for them last night.
That was a huge win, Jake. And the part that I really, really enjoyed last night was the fact that the Indiana Fever came out with a little bit of edge, and you could tell they were playing with a little bit more desperation than the Seattle Storm. And I would have thought, Jake, that Seattle would have come out with a much more focus and determination to try to win that game just because of where things are at right now in the standings. With that win last night, the Fever move up from 8th to 6th. Not to mention, I haven't really checked because of, had some meetings before the show, so I couldn't really follow up to see if Los Angeles and Phoenix and how that game turned out. But going into the game last night, if, the Fever would have lost to Seattle and Los Angeles defeated Phoenix, the Fever would have been out of the playoff picture with 6 games left on the schedule. They still remain in the picture, and you got a really good game from Kelsey Mitchell. They found ways to get Aaliyah Boston the ball. Odyssey Sims was fantastic last night, but good for the Fever to get back in the win column. Now they go on the road for 3 big games.
Phoenix, by the way, over Los Angeles last night, 92-84. All right, Chris Ballard is going to talk today. Is that correct, Eddie?
Yes, he will chat in a little over a half hour, and we will carry that live right here.
Okay, Chris Ballard's press conference regarding the roster, and this is the first time really that we've had a chance to hear from him since the news at quarterback and that Daniel Jones is going to be the starting quarterback. So, Chris Ballard, general manager of the Colts, at about 35 minutes from now. Up next, Tom Dienhart, Gold and Black. We will talk Purdue and find out what the Boilers, how they look. What's the magic number, if you will, for what you would consider progress for Purdue or expectation in year number 1? I have my thought on that. We'll get Tom's, and we'll do it next. So we fracture a little bit here on the show because Chris Ballard, 12:45 tentatively, we will hear from Chris Ballard on the program. My apologies. I thought Tom Dienhart was joining us now. It's coming up here in just a couple of minutes. So my total apologies on that. I'm curious with Purdue. I think that if you were to look, let me ask you this, Eddie Garrison, okay? You like over-unders, correct?
I do like a good over-under, Jake.
In
What's the over-under on the number of pumpkin spice lattes I drink?
Oh, boy.
I already got one.
Did they just launch those yesterday? Is that it?
Oh, yes, they did. There was a pretty long line at Starbucks this morning for it.
Okay. Why do they not just do this year-round?
Because why would you, Jake? It's like the whole McRib with McDonald's.
Right. It's the fact that how far into the pumpkin spice season do you go before you get tired of it?
Well, it's not like I drink them religiously.
Understood. But for most people, if pumpkin spice season begins, let's say the week before Labor Day, the novelty wears off because it lasts until how long? When do they phase them out? Christmas time?
I would probably say shortly after Thanksgiving, because then you're getting into your wintry drinks, so your peppermints, your hot chocolates, that type of stuff. You know.
So how far into the system or into the routine, the regiment, is it before it becomes just another thing and it wears off? Like there are certain, I'm not going to say any names because I don't want to, speak ill of any major products. Well, I mean, I guess I'm not speaking ill of it because they're good products. For example, I remember back when we would go for IndyCar to Mid-Ohio, and this was actually, here's a little glimpse behind the curtain.
Now, Jake, I don't know when pumpkin goes away, but my only friend Alec literally texted me, he goes, pumpkin goes away Thursday night. So I think pumpkin spice is a big fan. Well, I should say Alec is a big fan of pumpkin spice, more so than myself.
He said it goes away when?
Thanksgiving night.
Okay.
So he's much more in tune with the departure of it than I am.
Here's a glimpse behind the curtain, and then I have a question about Purdue, Indiana, and the Colts for you. But when I was doing an afternoon show on another radio station, that station I don't think does local sports anymore, so I could probably say it, but I think most people know that at that time I was doing the show with Derek, but we were on against JMV. I mean, we were competitors of one another. We were competing for the same audience. Yet, I routinely talked to him. I think people thought we were rivals, and I guess professionally we were, but we had pretty regular conversations with each other, and at that time, and I don't know if it still is the case, but he had mentioned on the air, I know that at one time he liked Yuengling a lot, Yuengling beer.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time you couldn't get Yuengling in Indiana, and so when we would do IndyCar over at Mid-Ohio, each year I would call John from Mid-Ohio and be like, hey, do you need a Yuengling order? You need me to bring anything back? Kind of like you with Spotted Cow or whatever, or you know, like the Beer Fairy does for Joel A. Erickson.
By the way, I'll consider that delivery from you as the pay-up of the Major League Baseball beer bet.
Which is pretty
so
much over at this point.
Yeah.
But at any rate, the reason I mentioned that Yuengling people went bonkers over Yuengling. And now that you can get it here, and I think it's a good beer for sure.
Yep.
But the other day, I was at one of my favorite places, and I asked, and I do this a lot, I'll ask the bartender, like, hey, which tap do you pull the least, or which do you pull the most, or which bottle, that kind of thing. I get fascinated by that stuff.
So wait, so then you get that tap, and it blows, right? Because nobody gets it, and then you have to, like, dust it off.
Anything that I order on tap, 70% of the time they come and they go, we just blew the keg. You are correct. But she's like, actually not a lot of as much Yuengling. And I think people like it. It's just the fact that novelty is, it doesn't, you don't feel the urgency now.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder if that is the case for the pumpkin spice. All right, here's my question for you. The Colts play 17 games.
Yep.
Indiana and Purdue play how many games each? Regular. I mean, I realize that there's the possible
12?
full or,
12 question mark?
I think that's right. Okay. Over, under, combined, total number of wins for Purdue, the Colts, and Indiana. If I put the over, under at 22.5, What say you?
So you're saying Purdue,
Indiana, and the Colts.
not Notre Dame.
I'm not counting Notre Dame because I think Notre Dame, number one, I don't think, and I know people will hate me for this. Notre Dame is a national brand and a national power. But when you're talking about just like the local, when I say the local teams, I mean teams that play their games within the immediate viewing area. I realize Notre Dame is an Indiana-based team with a huge following, the biggest following of any of them. But also I think Notre Dame unquestionably is going to win like 12 games.
19 and a half.
You put it at 19 and a half.
Yes.
You're going with how many for the Colts?
I think I had the Colts at 8.
You have the Colts at 8 and 9?
Yes.
Okay. Indiana?
When we did the exercise a few weeks ago, I had them 9 and 3, if I'm not mistaken.
17. Okay, so you got 5.5 for Purdue?
That would be 2.5.
So you're taking way under. You're setting the under. You're going even under your own under, right?
Yeah, I'd have to relook at Purdue's schedule.
You said the number you wanted was what?
I said 19 and a half.
Okay, so yeah, you're right. Okay. And you think Purdue will win how many games? I'll give you Purdue's schedule. We'll do this real quick, Eddie. You ready?
Yeah, I'm looking at it now.
Okay. I'm just going to name off the game. You tell me win or loss for Purdue. You ready?
Yep.
Ball State at home.
Win.
Southern Illinois at home.
Win.
USC at home.
Loss.
Okay, at Notre Dame.
Okay, you can mark L's for the next 3.
Hold on. But people want to hear the schedule. Illinois at home.
Lose.
Minnesota at Minnesota.
Lose.
Northwestern at Northwestern.
That's a fringe one. I will go surprise win.
Okay. Rutgers at home.
Loss.
At Michigan.
Loss.
Ohio State at home.
Loss.
At Washington.
Loss.
Bucket game.
Loss.
So you got them at 3 wins.
Of course, we don't know anything. That we're just basing off this last year, you know?
Correct. That's what. So you have. But here's the thing: you just hit your over because if you have them at 3 wins, then you've got 20 total. If you've got 8 and 9 for Indiana and the Colts.
But even still, like there were like 2 of the games there where I was like, they could win. I could see them losing. You know, 20 and a half, is that more realistic? Maybe 21 and a half if you think the Colts 9 and 8.
22 and a half. I think the Colts. You ready for this? Colts going to win 10 games.
So wow, you got the Colts at 10. How many you've got IU at 9?
I've got to look at the Indiana schedule. Look up Indiana's schedule for me.
Okay, ready?
We'll do it real quick. You ready? Okay.
Home against Old Dominion.
Win.
Home against Kennesaw State.
Win.
Home against Indiana State.
Win.
Home against Illinois.
Win.
At Iowa.
Loss.
At Oregon. After the bye week.
Loss.
Home against Michigan State.
Win.
Home against UCLA.
Win.
At Maryland.
Win.
At Penn State.
Loss.
Home against Wisconsin.
Win.
At Purdue.
9. Yep. And that probably is 10 because between that, what did you say? There was Iowa. Who do they put right before Iowa? Is that the Illinois game?
Yes.
It would not surprise me if they go 50-50 on those 2.
Yeah.
If they clear that hurdle with both those, that's pretty big. Tom Dienhart, Gold and Black, will go over whether or not we are underselling Purdue, and we'll do it next. And Chris Ballard press conference just about 20 from now. This Saturday, noon this Saturday, Ross-Ade Stadium up in West Lafayette. I'll tell you what, and I would assume one of these will change. Certainly the bucket game on Friday after Thanksgiving is going to be awesome because that is a night game. But if you get a chance to go to a night game at Ross-Ade, I love it. I think it is just a great atmosphere. It's such a cool stadium. I love everything about it. Tom Dienhart joining us now, Gold and Black, to talk about Purdue. And, Tom, I'll get right to this question, and that is, do we have any better idea of what the 2025 Purdue Boilermakers are going to look like than we did, say, 6 weeks ago?
If you could see me right now, Jake, you'd see me shrugging my shoulders, buddy.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I wish I knew. I wish I could tell you I knew, but I'd be lying if I said I knew. Coach Odom was gracious with his access during camp. We could watch all the practices, but, you want to believe what you see. But, as you all know, we got to actually get a look at these guys against somebody else to get a real evaluation. So that's coming soon enough. It's going to be a beautiful day, I think, the weather-wise here in West Lafayette on Saturday, too, at high noon.
Okay, how about this? Because I totally agree with you in the fact that when you have the high number of, and for those that don't know, obviously Purdue had a coaching change. They bring in Barry Odom, who comes in from UNLV. The track record would indicate that they're going to be a very good in terms of a disciplined football team. They're not going to wow you with, this is not Joe Tiller coming in with an offense that blows everybody away. This is not some sort of groundbreaking style and system. Rather, it is just wear you down, grind it out, tough, disciplined football. At least that's the blueprint. Having said that, do you have an idea? We don't know how good they're going to be from a personnel standpoint, but schematically speaking, Tom, do we have a better idea of what brand of football you are going to see game in and game out, or is it pretty much what I just described?
I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. Hard, smart, and tough. And anybody who's heard Barry Odom speak knows that's his mantra. Hard, smart, and tough. When we talked to him in December, shortly after he was hired, he mentioned that he wants to run the football and be physical. So no shock there. I think that fits his personality. He's a defensive coach. And, again, I think being physical on offense is important. They went to the portal, got a lot bigger on the offensive line, got a lot deeper. So I think that's where they want to start. And, Jake, I think that's where most offenses want to start, is running the football. But for Barry Odom in particular, I think being physical, winning the line of scrimmage is job number one for the offense.
Let me tell you my concern, Tom, and then I want you to tell me, in your time being around, especially in the Big Ten, if I'm wrong here, okay? In 2025 in college football, when I look at the teams, and I know that Purdue is not immediately saying, hey, we got to do what we can to, pull a Kurt Signetti and get into the college football playoff in year one. I mean, there's so many things that just oddly have to go into place for that. But if you look at, like, even in the Big Ten, Ohio State, Michigan to an extent, Penn State to an extent, I think so much of success in college football today is about speed in space. And the era of 3 yards in a cloud of dust or line up across and just overall out-grit people, my fear is that could be antiquated. Tell me I'm wrong.
No, it's a sport. I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and then those were the heydays of the running backs, all the number 32s, with Franco Harris and the guys like Lydell Mitchell. I mean, just a great plethora of running backs. And we've seen this become a quarterback's game and a wide receiver's game in the last, 10 or 15, 20 years. So you're right. Quarterback-centric, passing-centric. You talked about getting players in space, letting them do their things. That sort of describes basketball in grass by Joe Tiller. A revolutionary concept that really caught the conference by storm. And, so we'll see. Barry Young's, I guess, zigging when everybody else is zagging, so to speak. Don't get me wrong. I think he wants to pass the football, and he will pass the football. But I still think they want to stay tethered to that ground game, being physical. And I guess we're going to have to wait to see if indeed you can win at a consistent level playing that brand of football in the Big Ten.
When you talk about, passing the football or just what there are so many times, so many transfers that have come in, and this roster looks so new. throughout the form of the preseason here and watching them practice, or in perhaps just when Coach Odom speaks, is there a player or two that jump out at you where you say, I don't know how good Purdue's going to be, but this guy's going to be fun to watch this year?
I think that's an easy one. Number 2, Michael Jackson. Yes, they have a player named Michael Jackson. I think he's going to be their best wide receiver. If you wanted to pick a star at training camp, I think he'd be the guy you would go with. A transfer from Georgia who spent most of his career at USC, so Purdue's his third school. But he's a guy that's really turned a lot of heads, and that's going to be your alpha receiver, I think, to begin the year at least. There's a kid from northern Indiana here, another Georgia transfer, Nitro Tuggle, from Napanee up in that part of the state, who everybody's excited about. And I think in time, maybe he could be that real deep threat they're looking for. So I think they do have some weapons. And now we have Ryan Brown, right? Can Ryan Brown take that next step, that next evolution of the quarterback? He's got the intangibles, certainly. We'll see if he's really improved as a passer or not.
Yeah, when you look at improvement for a passer at the college game, and, Brown comes out of, I think he's from Michigan, if I'm not mistaken, right? So, and he's got the size. He definitely has good size. But is it timing, or is it actual precision of ball delivery that has been so far the thing that has prohibited him from really taking that next step, if that makes sense?
I think it's always accuracy. Becoming more accurate has been the issue. That's usually the issue for all quarterbacks still developing, and that comes with time. So he's had his moments in camp. There's no doubt about it. 6'4", 215 pounds, and he can run, Jake. He's going to be a big part of the ground game, I think. Not just from improvising and extending plays with his feet, but from some called runs as well. So he's a guy, I think, that can do some things with his feet. And I think his arm, like I said, is coming along as well. So, yeah, they may have some weapons here. Of course, running back Maccabee's back. Maybe the best players are tied in. George Byrne from Mount Vernon, Indiana, who may not play, coming off a spring injury. He's a terrific player. I think they want to make sure he's totally healed up and ready to go. So I'm guessing we're not going to see him Saturday, nor maybe even against Southern Illinois. So we'll see. But again, number 81, George Byrne, the cornerback, the tight end, I should say, is a terrific player, and I think he's going to have to be a star if he wants this offense to really go.
Listen, I love Devin Maccabee, Tom Dienhart, our guest from Golden Black. I love him because not only does he seem like a really nice young man when I've heard him interviewed, and I think we've had him on here before as well, and John's had him on, but his running style, I just love the fact that the run downhill, I am afraid of no one style of run for Maccabee, and I think what has hurt him at times is everyone knew that was the way for Purdue to move the chains, and so you could hone in on it a little bit. If they can get some offensive flexibility that opens up some lanes for him, he could have not that he hasn't already, but he could really have a big year this year. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, he's about 1,100, 1,200 yards away from becoming the all-time leading rusher here, and you're right about his character. And just as a kid, the kind of guy you'd want as your son. Just a terrific individual, devoid of ego. Man, Jake, you stand next to Devin Maccabee and you wouldn't even know he's a football player. He's just really not physically imposing either. He has gotten bigger, but he's got that knack running the ball. Anybody who watches him has seen it. And, this is his last go-around, third head coach he's played for, so he's going to be fun to watch as well. And he's they can't totally lean on Maccabee because I think he's still a little bit slight. So that's where that air game you're talking about could maybe create some ground space for him to operate on if the defenses really have to respect the possibility of getting beat over the top with a deep pass.
It all gets underway Saturday. Going to be a beautiful day. Ross-Ade and West Lafayette. It is Purdue and Ball State, and then it is Southern Illinois in week number 2. Tom, appreciate the time as always, and look forward to talking to you over the course of the season, and hopefully is one where Purdue surprises people. We shall see, but I certainly look forward to talking to you.
I hope to see you down here, I should say, up here, and maybe you'll be up here doing shout one time here going to the fourth quarter. Jake.
Love it. I'm telling you, I did it last year. I went for the Oregon game. Stayed for that, and that was the highlight of the night, unfortunately. I met the Duck. That was cool, too. But I love it up there, Tom. We will see you up there.
Thank you, sir. Be good.
All right, Tom Deanhart from Golden Black. We come back. Chris Ballard will be talking about the Colts roster, and we will take you out to West 56 next. So we anticipate that Chris Ballard will be addressing the media here coming up in just a couple of moments from the Colts complex on West 56. This is, of course, done each and every year at the start of the season and the end of camp. I would imagine one of the, from a roster standpoint, I don't think that there were any huge surprises. Juju Brents to me was surprising. Now, it's not in totality when you think about the fact that Juju Brents, because what do I always say? The best ability is availability. And Juju Brents obviously has been dinged up and has not been able to play. I feel bad for him, not just because he's a local guy and you pull for local guys, but also because it's not his fault that his body just has kind of let him down, right? I mean,
same for Jelani Woods, right?
And the same for Jelani Woods, yeah. I mean, Jelani Woods is another one that I think there was – the Colts in particular were clearly very high on Jelani Woods and intrigued by is probably a better way of saying it, with what he could do. And you get injuries and you miss 2 games or 2 years, and then what do? You just have not had a chance to show what you're doing. But I would also imagine it goes without saying that the first question for Chris Ballard, or at least one of the first, is going to be, even though this is about his roster decisions, clearly the burning question now for Ballard becomes, is Anthony Richardson somebody that he is open for business on? I know that, and I know what he's going to say. We believe in Anthony, and, we anticipate having him here next year, and he's done a great job with the scout team and yada, yada. I get all that.
Look, he's got stuff he's got to work through, and, we'll work through that. And, when
right.
Anthony's ready, we'll, give him another shot.
I mean, that's exactly what you're going to hear, right? And I get that. I get that you kind of have to say that. You kind of have to say that. But without further ado now, Chris Ballard, the general manager of the Indianapolis Colts from West 56th.
Yeah, that was crazy. Anyway, good to see everybody. Last month since we last talked, I thought we had a really good training camp, great competition. It was physical, I think, as you all saw. We got after it pretty good. I was really pleased with not only the effort, but the intensity day to day of what we went through. Of course, always tough decisions when you're coming to the final cut down, and I don't ever take that lightly. Players that, they've been here for 5-6 months, some of them longer, a couple years, and you got to say, goodbye to them. That's not always easy to do. But it's also part of the game, and I think everybody understands that. I think one of the things, and I talked with our coaching staff about this before we made the cuts, was like, hey, let's make sure that when we do this, every player understands why. Okay, here's the reasoning. All right, here's the things you need to get better at. Because a lot of times it's just like, hey, you're out the door, see you later, thanks for your time. No, just wanted to make sure that we were pretty explicit in what we, told each guy, hey, these are the reasons why. Most of them had a good idea already, but it also gives them a way to improve. Feel good about the team, feel good about where we're at. We'll still work through the roster, as we will all season, but, week 1 never looks the same as it will week 8, 9, 10, 11, based on injuries and things that happen. But excited about the team, excited about the roster. Unfortunate that we lost a couple guys. Freeland's injury at tackle, he was really taking a big step in year 3. Losing Hunter and Wally, that was a blow, which, caused us to have to make some other moves. They were coming along. I mean, both of them are going to be excellent, excellent football players in this league. I think all of you saw the progress both of those guys were making, and both kind of like, Wally, I had to keep watching the tape over again and over again when he did his, his ACL, and kind of the same thing with Hunter with his foot, But that, it's just part of the game. You have injuries, and you gotta find a way to find answers. Okay, they're not always, perfect, but you find answers and guys you think you can win with. And we think, and I give my staff a lot of credit for working extremely hard, making sure we had names, making sure we were constantly active and looking for players. But feel good about where we're at, where we're going. Fire away.
Since you guys named Daniel starter, have you found it necessary, or have you talked to AR about his future here, how he fits in, or not?
I've not had a lot of talks with AR, but I've had a lot of talks with his agent. Coaching staff handles, they talk to Anthony a bunch. I mean, I've talked to Anthony. Because the one thing I think is getting overshadowed a little bit is Daniel. Because I let both of them competed, professional, battled to the end. And at the end of the day, Daniel, won the job. Does that mean we're down on Anthony? No. But I don't want to, dismiss that, Daniel he's had a good run here. It reminds me a lot of Alex Smith that we had in Kansas City, who I thought was just the ultimate professional. Day in and day out, the team knew exactly what they were getting, and I feel that's kind of the same thing with Daniel. So, I know the story's always been about Anthony, but also let's don't lose sight of, Daniel did some good things, and he's been a really good professional. He's been through a lot. And then going to Anthony, I know the negativity, and it's easy to say, okay, he's done, and I don't agree. I've said this numerous times. I do not agree with that. I think overcoming challenges and obstacles along the way are good for anybody. I do. I'm proud of Anthony, of where he's at, how far he's come. He's come miles. I mean, I want you to think back, and it's tough on any young quarterback in this league, but for him to keep taking the growth steps that he has, and to work so hard, and then not get the goal for himself. All right, now to continue to do that, that's when we got a chance to see real growth. And there's some value. There's a lot of value in sitting behind a guy that's a professional and watching and learning and growing and working on the things you need to work on without the same pressure of being the starter. There's a lot of good to that.
One quick follow-up. When you made the move, has anyone contacted you about trading, get him in a trade?
Yeah, no, but we're not trading him.
Chris, you talked about Anthony and him having to go through things. What is the long-term plan for him, and how clearly can you lay that out for someone who a couple years ago was the number 4 pick in the draft and now has been put on the bench for the second time?
Yeah, and that's a fair question. But what I would tell you is, everybody's growth and path and journey in this league is different. Okay, they are. And they're not always, I wish I could draw a straight line from A to B and say, this is the thing, this is how it's going to go. Okay, we're going to start here and we're going to end up here. Well, we all know that's not life. That's not real life. And it's the same thing with Anthony. There's up and down, and there you see growth, and then there's some moments where you say, okay, we need to get better at that. So I think following Daniel and watching him work, and if he continues with the growth that he's had, Anthony's been good. He has, and he's made tremendous strides. Is he there yet? No. But does he have work to do? Yes. And Anthony will acknowledge that. I'm really proud of it's one of the fun parts of this job is watching guys just start to really mature. And I know everybody thinks that a 20, 21, 22-year-old young man should be a grown man, all right, in everything they do. But that's not the case in any world. With anything you're doing in life. These are young people, and it takes some time. So to watch him grow and to continue to mature, and then to handle the adversity. There's 2 ways you can handle this. You can go in the dumps, or you can accept the challenge. And accept the challenge to keep getting better, be prepared, continue to work on your fundamentals, continue to work on the daily game planning that has to happen as a quarterback, to collaborate with the other quarterbacks in your game planning, and then being ready to go because you're one snap away. That's real. That is real. And that's a natural development. I know you want me to sit here and give you an A to B plan. Look, it's about daily, everyday work and doing it without the pressure of being the starter. And saying all of that, we're getting lost again. Like, Daniel's done a lot of good things. I mean, y'all saw the practice. He did some good things, and he's a good player, and he's an ultimate professional, and he's a consistent player day in and day out.
So along those lines, why do you all think you can have a successful season with Daniel Jones when I asked Shane Steichen, okay, what things do you lean on and you look at for this guy to believe in him, and he goes back to 2022? That was 3 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm not going to 2022. I'm going to what we've seen since he's been here.
I guess, again, can you explain what things have you seen to give you that confidence that he can be a winning quarterback?
His ability to run the offense, to get him out of good and bad plays, to know the checks, just the things that most veteran quarterbacks can do, and to make sure that we're continually moving the chains. That consistency is a good thing. And look, he has some explosive ability in him too, and I think we saw that in the preseason.
The quarterback decision is the quarterback decision, right? It's made. But the one thing I would ask you is the idea that Anthony can grow more in year 3 on the sideline does not make any sense to me. Can you explain that?
Yeah, I think and I think I explained it earlier. I don't know if you were listening. You're a good listener too, but I think there's times when, I mean, you got your question, your loaded up question that you want to answer. So that's what y'all don't listen to what I said before. I think it is good for young players, especially at the quarterback position, if they're not completely ready, to sit back without the pressure of daily pressure of having to perform. Now, the pressure's still there because he's one play away, but it's much different. It's much different. I just think the little intricacies that they can learn by doing the backup role can serve them well, because he's still serving the start. Let's don't forget that backup role's still serving the starter, okay? And that's different. That's different, and it's different for Anthony. It's just it's an area that, he's embraced, and it's been fun to watch so far, and it would be fun to watch as we go forward.
Do you feel like he needs more growth off the field or on?
He's a good kid. Like, I don't worry about. I think with any young person, like any young player on our team, when they come in the building, you would hope that they're ready-made, ready to go professionals in every aspect of both in the building and out of the building. But like I said earlier, young men take time to grow. They just do. They have to learn and grow. And I think he's done a really good job managing all the expectations, not only externally, but internally. And I think he's growing in that area.
So, Chris, looking at
Chris Ballard addressing the media. We will continue with it, but we do pause 10 seconds for station identification.
why should people believe in the plan you have now for him versus the plan you all previously had?
Well, I don't quite, so you're really good asking questions because you always get to why should people believe. I don't know how to answer why should people believe. Like, I think you know the answer. They believe when you win. If you don't, they don't believe. Like, it wouldn't matter who was a quarterback. They wouldn't believe. If you didn't win, they're not going to believe. If you win, they give you a little more benefit of the doubt, and then y'all help put doubt to make sure there's questions being asked. That's the only way I know how to answer that one. I don't know what you want me to say.
So how does winning affect your ability to believe?
I think it affects everybody. I mean, I think everybody, like, winning is, and look, you can win sometimes and not deserve it, and lose sometimes and deserve to win. That's the nature of sports. But I think anytime you get over the hump and get to the goal you're trying to reach, there's a confidence level in everybody. And look, we had it going pretty good there for a while. And, at the end of 21, we kind of started going down this road where I don't want to say we've lost our confidence, but we've not been able to finish things out seasons like we need to. And that's something we think we're going to improve on.
Anthony's past performance and availability, for sure, is kind of what brought us to the two quarterback situation, right? Daniel's recent past performance is not great, at least on paper, statistically. How much are you examining that part of it, and is there any possibility of overlooking any of that?
I mean, look, I just examined what we watched over the last few months, okay? And that's it. I don't want to overcomplicate that any more than it is. I'm not going to get into, but there's examples of guys that have had rough starts to their careers and have absolutely bounced back and had good careers. And there's examples of guys who've been benched who come back and play. So that we just judge what we have right now. We do have like 51 other guys on the team. Do we have any other questions on the team? I mean, you can keep spinning this other one as many ways as you want, but we do have 51 other teams. Absolutely. And look, let me say this. They deserve to ask these questions. And I understand the doubt. I get it. And that's our job to go prove it at the end of the day. It's a long season. And things are good and bad. You have good moments and bad moments. But like I said before, like when you win, it sure helps a lot of those issues.
Chris, you said previously that you regret having played Anthony right away. Were you pressured by ownership to put him out there?
No, don't. Come on, Bob. No, not at all. We made the decision. You learn sometimes with decisions that didn't go the way you wish they would have gone. And so, but no, there was no pressure. No.
You feel like you did enough or maybe the right homework on Anthony coming out of Florida?
No, we knew. We knew he was wrong. We knew it was going to take time. I think everybody knew. Yeah, I think we knew. And we knew it was going to be a little bit of a roller coaster. Absolutely. I mean, just his history in college. And so that's just part of the growth. No, sometimes you got to take a swing. We took a swing. And look, I'm not ready to say that we missed because I don't think we have yet. I think Anthony has a bright future. I believe that. Anything else?
Yeah, just to break the trend, what has gone on and is going on with the cornerback room? It's just night and day who's in there.
Yeah, so, I mean, all of a sudden you lose Wally, who we were really excited about. Juju, poor kid's just had bad luck. He's a great young man. He's very talented. He's just had some bad luck. And I'm hoping for him maybe a change of scenery, and he'll get it turned around where he can stay healthy. But we just, going into it, we knew we needed, to go when we made we went and got Mooney. We thought that was a really good sign and gave us a true, number one corner that has a proven track record. And then when Wally went down, and then all of a sudden Jones is down, Juju's down, we're like, okay, what? We got to start finding some answers here. We had Lou had a history with Xavier. I actually worked Xavier out in college when I was with the Chiefs, and we were really high on Xavier, and he has a proven track record of being a good player. I know the year out, he hadn't played, but I think that might have ended up being good for his body because he's looked really good. And then the move for Blackman in Minnesota was something we had kind of been playing with over the last 3 or 4 weeks with Minnesota, and feel fortunate to get him because we think he can play a few different roles. He can play both inside and outside. He's a good cover guy. He's aggressive. So we're excited about getting him and that depth. And then getting Jones, we'll get Jones back here up and running, and I still believe in Jones. I think Jones can be a really good player. And then Edwards was, from Tulane, who was undrafted. Man, I think he did a lot of really good things this preseason. He's big, he's a good athlete, he can run, he's conscientious, he's tough. Like, there's a lot of great qualities that I think Edwards has. So, yes, there has been significant change in that room. Some based on injuries from where we started, some based on, look, we knew we needed to get better. We knew we needed to get better there.
What are you getting with Muma, the guy you got from Jacksonville?
Who?
Chad Muma.
Chad Muma.
From Jacksonville, linebacker.
Oh, we claimed him. We got him. Okay, here we go. News to me. I'm glad I just got. Good job. I mean, y'all, Twitter is unbelievable. It is. It is a news source. Now, look, we knew we wanted. We kept 4. Knew we wanted to add, another guy. We're still going to bring some other guys in. It's different than it was in the past, because in the past we usually kept 6 and dressed 6th in the schemes we were in before. But now, a little differently, where he'll play some dimes, so we're really only playing with a Mike and a Will. But Muma's we liked him coming out.
He's a Will.
He could play probably both Will and Mike. He's good on teams. We liked him coming out of Wyoming. He's had some experience playing, so that's good. Good. I'm excited. I don't get to be, but excited to find out we got him.
Where do you view like positions of strength, either side of the ball for you right now?
I think we're really good up front. I think we're going to be really good up front on both sides of the ball. I think our wideout room is really good. We had to make some cuts there that I thought were pretty tough. I thought Treadwell. I love Treadwell. Think of this. The guy's over 30 years old, former first-round pick. Competes his ass off every day. But it's a good room. It's an excellent room. It's like when you think in terms of like a basketball team, you've kind of got all the elements that you want when you're building a basketball team. You got a big man in Pitt who can win, both short, intermediate, and down the field with his size. You have Pierce who can stretch it. You have a young player in A.D. Mitchell who we think's got big upside that can create off after the catch. You got Josh Downs who I think is just tremendous, and then you got Anthony Gould who's coming on, and then Mr. Reliable Doolin who every time we put him in the game he catches a ball and does well and is great on teams. So it's an excellent room, and every of them kind of have a niched out role. But I do like the strength. I like our tight end room a lot.
Impressed at all, or is this what you?
He's pretty good. We thought he's going to be pretty good. And we think he's going to be a really good pro. I don't want to put undue expectations on him, but he's pretty freaking good.
Sorry, did you really not know about the claim guy until someone told you in here?
No, I just found out. You told me. Good. I knew we put it in. I just didn't know we got him.
Did you put in any other claims?
No. That was a good one, though. That was good. That's good.
Your offensive line depth, are you obviously you mentioned Freeland, that was a hit. Jalen's young.
Yeah.
What do you think there?
Look, I think Jalen Travis is going to be excellent. I do. He is big. Now, that's one that I'm not going to say surprised me, but he's come along faster than I thought he would. And he's a much better athlete. I thought he was a decent athlete, but he's a much better athlete. You ought to watch him in there skipping rope in the weight room. It's impressive for a 340-pound guy. I like where Tucker's at. Tucker's really come along. Being an undrafted guy a year ago, having to get thrown in the mix and start some games, and he had some struggles, but bounced back from that. I'm excited about him. I was excited when we actually put him in there at center, and he looked pretty good. Danny Penner was dealing with a knee kind of all of camp, but we've got it calmed down. He does. So, we've played good football with Danny, and then keeping Tenuta, who, we claimed him a few years back, and then he kind of bounced around, and then ability to get him back and his ability to play both left and right tackle. So, yeah, I feel pretty good about our depth there.
Is there anything going on with Mike Hilton or not?
Let me just say this. We're going to explore guys right now. We're going to explore vets. You're going to see it over the next 10 days. You're going to see it over the next month. We're going to bring guys in. That's what we do. We're going to kick the tires, make sure that we have a list of guys that if we have to go to, we can go to them.
How much pressure do you, I guess, pressure, responsibility, whatever, do you personally feel going into year 9 and, I guess, knowing that, in a way, you've made another big decision to go with Daniel Jones and, I guess, roll with that and going into a year where things have changed?
I don't know. I think y'all all know me well enough that I care deeply about this organization and city, okay? The fans, the way they treat you, they're great. Now I got a few emails that were nasty, but I always wonder if that's from what basement is some dude writing that from. But saying that, I just don't roll that way. I never have. I never rolled that way where I worry about, what the future holds. I'm fortunate to work in the National Football League. I've always been grateful. And I will never take one day for granted, whatever the role. This is a unique place. I could have to go get a real job for a living. That would suck. That would really suck. So no pressure in that way. No.
In your combos with Carly, how would you define success this upcoming season?
Winning. I mean, we always do. We're accomplishing our goals. I mean, we all know. Like, I don't think I've ever shied away from the fact that we haven't been good enough. Like, I never shied away from that. And she doesn't either. She's just competitive. Both of them are. It's not just Carly, but so is Kaylin and so is Casey. They're competitive. I think that's the one thing about Jim that I really loved was, God, he was competitive, wanted to win. They got the same gene. So, success is winning. I think we all would agree with that. Success is not losing, it's winning. So that's what the goal is.
Last one here.
What gives you confidence in AR going back to the bench, learning and taking things, I guess, slow when just historically, and correct me if I'm wrong, I try to go back and find, when's the last time a quarterback of this caliber or just drafted this high was benched twice this early? It just hasn't worked with that team. So what gives you confidence that it can still work here when we just haven't seen it? At least I haven't seen it.
Yeah, Alex Smith went through some struggles and had success in San Francisco. He did, took him to the playoffs. It got hurt, and Cap ended up coming in. But there's been example, at least one. I don't know. I just feel like the progress he's making, if he continues down this road, we're going to be able to see that talent come to light. There's always got to be one time, right? So why not him? And I do believe that. His progress has been good. You're going to ask Downing questions the whole time, James. I get it. And I understand why. But at the end of the day, time is what, I can sit over and give you every answer you want, okay? But at the end of the day, time is what proves you're right or wrong, and your actions and how it plays out. I think it's sure in him. I do. I think it's in him. Whether that happens or not, we'll see. But I do think that's in him.
Did you practice what done yet or not?
No. Is it already on Twitter?
That is Chris Ballard, the general manager of the Indianapolis Colts, and there were a couple of things that jumped out at me there. The first being, and I have always felt this way, we have the ability here, we have the text line at 239-1070. I give my telephone number out on the air all the time at 523-9288. We have the YouTube chat. We have social media. I totally understand that it is fair game for those of us on radio or television to be criticized because to an extent, whether we like it or not, our job is to criticize people or their, not as people, but their job effectiveness, their decision making. And so it's fair when we have to take that back. And people say, like somebody earlier was like, oh, this is great sports talk radio. You're doing wins and losses predictions in the preseason. That's a fair critique. Guilty as charged. Maybe because I've been around it for a long time, I'm the one that's defensive of fellow media members. And I understand the cynicism that people have about the media. But to me, that was an overly defensive Chris Ballard at the beginning of that press conference. It wasn't James Boyd who drafted a guy 4th overall at the quarterback position and within the first contract decided that he wasn't good enough to start for the roster. It wasn't Stephen Holder who has guided a franchise now that has watched every other team within the division win the division twice since your franchise last did. It wasn't Kevin Bowen that's won a playoff game and now heading into year number 9. There are things about this roster that I like. There are things that Chris Ballard has done that I give him credit for. But for him to act incredulous about the fact that the vast majority of questions at the beginning of that press conference were going to be about Anthony Richardson when he has not talked to the media since the decision that Anthony Richardson, his franchise pick for a franchise quarterback, has been usurped as the starter by a guy that has a 20-game below 500 starting record. He has to understand those questions are going to come. But let's respond to a couple of things that he had to say. For starters, when he was asked about the growth of Anthony Richardson and how far Anthony Richardson has come, here's what Chris Ballard had to say.
I think following Daniel and watching him work, and if he continues with the growth that he's had, like Anthony's been good. He has, and he's made tremendous strides. Is he there yet? No. But does he have work to do? Yes. And Anthony will acknowledge that. Like, I'm really proud of it's like one of the fun parts of this job is watching guys just start to really mature. And I know everybody thinks that a 20, 21, 22-year-old young man should be a grown man, all right, in everything they do. But that's not the case in any world. With anything you're doing in life. Like, these are young people, and it takes some time. So to watch him grow and to continue to mature and then to handle the adversity. Like, there's 2 ways you can handle this. Like, you can go in the dumps or you can accept the challenge. And accept the challenge to keep getting better, be prepared, continue to work on your fundamentals, continue to work on the daily game planning that has to happen as a quarterback, to collaborate with the other quarterbacks in your game planning, and then being ready to go because you're 1 snap away. That's real. That is real. And that's a natural development. I know you want me to sit here and give you an A to B plan. Look, it's about daily, everyday work and doing it without the pressure of being the starter.
Okay, he also said that he believes that Anthony Richardson has come miles, that he's been overcoming obstacles, and he has come miles, and he's proud of that. The question that I have in that, or the point that I think everyone needs to ask, is if Anthony Richardson has come miles as a player, then that means that at one point he was miles away from where he is now. But at that point, you decided after a month to make him your starter. Now that he has come miles from that progression, he's not good enough to start. So what does that tell you about your decision-making, and is that an admission that you completely butchered it from the beginning with Anthony Richardson? That is right there a fundamental error in the way that you handled Anthony Richardson from the get-go, because by your own admission, he was not good enough to be a starter in the National Football League when you first got him. Because if he has come miles from there, if he's not good enough to be a starter today, then why was he good enough to be a starter miles ago? That would be my first question. And that's why it bothers me. Maybe it shouldn't, but that's why it bothers me that he was so defensive and at times condescending to people for asking about it. I mean, he was condescending to, oh, you guys are always, it was deflect. That's a fundamental error in the way that you handled Anthony Richardson, and that is right there an admission of that guilt. Now, later, James Boyd, who you hear on the Fan Morning Show on this radio station with Jeff Rickard and Kevin Bowen, asked the question about where Chris Ballard feels in terms of his own job security. And he said something that I found very interesting.
I care deeply about this organization and city, okay? The fans, the way they treat you, they're great. Now I got a few emails that were nasty, but I always wonder if that's from what basement is some dude writing that from. But saying that, I just don't roll that way. I never have. I never rolled that way where I worry about, what the future holds. I'm fortunate to work in the National Football League. I've always been grateful, and I will never take one day for granted, whatever the role. This is a unique place. I could have to go get a real job for a living. That would suck. That would really suck. So no pressure in that way. No.
Okay. I can appreciate that. And Chris Ballard and I are roughly the same age, I think. I can appreciate the perspective of understanding there's more to life than, like, your job security. I get it. But this is the National Football League. This is professional sports. Do you know what makes elite athletes elite athletes? Do you know what makes legendary coaches legendary coaches? Do you know what makes an Indy 500 champion driver different than the other 32 in the field? Do you know what makes Michael Jordan Michael Jordan? Yes, you've got to have natural ability. I get all of that. But it's like Al Unser Jr. once said about the Indy 500. There comes a time in every race where winning is all that matters. And I think the vast majority of people in professional sports, while I do respect Chris Ballard's perspective there, the bottom line is maybe it's time for him to start worrying about and feeling the pressure of failure. Then are we going to start taking things seriously? We're in year number 9 here. Patience, patience, patience. Just everybody be patient. We have a plan. It's going to take time. 9 years in the NFL is like dog years. That's like 70 years. For fans around here, they don't want to hear about patience. They don't want to hear about just wait for the plan to come to vision, and they certainly don't want to hear that the guy that is asking for your patience doesn't feel any sort of a pressure or worry about failure. You don't worry about failure? And I get fundamentally what he is saying, but this is professional sports. This is different than it just is. I'm going to guess Peyton Manning, Michael Jordan, Reggie Miller, Tyrese Halliburton. The thing that drives them, why was Kobe Bryant in gyms at 5 o'clock in the morning when everybody else got up at 7? Because he was afraid to fail. Because he didn't want to fail, because that's how they rolled. That's how they rolled. And to me, and I'm not trying to make a mountain out of a molehill. I'm not trying, listen, I have nothing against Chris Ballard as a person. I thought in that press conference right there, he was disrespectful to the people whose job it is to cover his franchise, and notably when the most important decision of his franchise in the last handful of years, by his own admission, was right there, misplayed and misconstrued and mishandled and misjudged. And maybe it would have been played differently, and maybe we would have been willing to, why are we the ones that have to be patient when by your own admission you handed the keys to a franchise quarterback way too early and rushed it when you were the one that should have been patient? Maybe if they'd have been patient with Anthony Richardson, we wouldn't be in this situation. We wouldn't be sitting here questioning whether or not they're going to have to blow the whole thing up and start all over again. If they would have organically allowed him to grow into being a franchise quarterback like allegedly they still believe he can be, if they would have organically done that by waiting for him to come miles, and by coming miles, he still isn't ready to be a starter. Not my proclamation, theirs. So where was the patience then? Where was the patience we're supposed to have? Where was the vision and the plan that we're supposed to ride out? We'll talk more about this over the course of the show today. There is a big one happening in college football. Marian, UND, Ted Karras Jr. Always a fun conversation, and he joins us next. To Chris Ballard coming up just a couple minutes. College football getting underway. We have talked a lot about the slate of games, including some big ones taking place on Saturday. But to kind of get everything kicked off here locally, I mentioned earlier there are two schools in the Indianapolis area that are scholarship football programs. One is ranked 15th to begin the Division II college football rankings, talking about the University of Indianapolis. The other one starts out the NAIA rankings, where they are always nationally ranked and competitive, at 23rd, talking about the Marian Knights. And they get underway and tussle tomorrow night at 6:05 at Ascension St. Vincent Field over on the near west side of Indianapolis. And joining us now on the guest line to talk about that and more, the head football coach of the Marian Knights, Ted Karras Jr., joins the program. Coach, how are you?
Doing good here, Jake. Exciting times on the west side indeed.
I'll tell you what, I love it because this time of year, and Mother Nature cooperated perfectly because all of a sudden, like in the last week, the temperature just dropped to that little slight crisp in the air, and so you know it's football season, right? And I know from a coaching standpoint, you're always thinking football season, but you know, this time of year is always fascinating because you're just trying to find out your roster and who you are and where you've come from a year ago. Where are you guys right now in terms of where you'd like to be going into week number one, if that makes sense?
It does, but let's get back to the weather. Thank goodness that the weather broke a little bit because we truly had to improvise and adapt during our training camp, moving off campus on numerous occasions, but the guys got it done. And we got some good work in. So where I'd like to be, you know, first games are always scary. I like to be, you know, obviously win the football game and play really well, but, you know, you never know in week one. And we're going to be playing quite a few new guys. I'm really excited to see how they perform. And we also have a lot of good veterans that have proven themselves on the gridiron and looking for big things from them.
When you look at, Coach, and I know that this is, and I know this from talking to Pat Knight, for example, who's along with you at Marian on the basketball side of things, the NIL complexity of college football, and I'm sure you're rolling your eyes right when I ask that because it's such a buzzword within college athletics. And at the NAIA level, it's not it's not applicable, but it is to an extent because you have kids maybe that go and they think there's going to be greener pasture somewhere, and then it doesn't work out, and they find themselves wanting to just play. How has kind of the ripple down, if you will, affected you guys just in terms of roster and for that matter, transfers in of kids that all of that applies towards?
It's a good question. So, no, it has affected us. Last year we had a really good cornerback, Rhett Lewis, and he ended up going to Mississippi State, the big Division I, FBS program, for a nice little deal. And then, some NAIA schools are starting to work with the NIL. I think we have to, get going on that ourselves too. But what I've seen just like over the last 2 years is that a lot of players at this level, if they, have distinguished themselves, can move up in division and also get an NIL payday. So it's really interesting, what's gone on the last, really 2-3 years.
So let's talk about your roster in terms of what you have returning. And in addition to that, I'm assuming, Coach, that you're always kind of looking from one year to the next of making slight tweaks or changes of the way you play. But do you design towards what you were doing a year ago, or do you have some new faces that maybe create a little bit of need for wrinkle?
Oh, yeah. Well, so first off, we have a new defensive coordinator in Clay Emmerich. He's done an excellent job. And we have some new faces on the defensive side of the ball as well. So, no, there's going to be quite a few changes defensively for sure. And there's going to be some new faces in the program that are going to get to play tomorrow night. Offensively, Matt King returns as our offensive coordinator. We're going to do a lot of the same, but he's also going to have some wrinkles in there, that best fits our personnel and what he wants to do there. So every year is always different, Jake. So, and you got to improvise and adapt and make those changes.
You got a pretty big staff, actually. I know Steve Tootsie, for example, who's obviously well known from a high school standpoint in the area, and I think was out of coaching for a while and came back. But you've got a pretty good size staff in terms of going into the year. And I'm curious, as the head coach, which area of a football team does the head coach become most reliant on the assistant?
Wow, that's a good question. I'd say it probably changes from year to year. I've been on, all sides of the football. And then when I first got back to Marian, I was offensively. Now I'm on the defensive side working with the D-line. I've been a special teams coordinator. I think that, if you have a good, stout defense, that's what you want to, rely on most.
When you look offensively speaking, I love when I ask this question at the beginning of each year. And listen, Marian is so cool anyway, Coach. You probably hear me say this annually. But every time I drive up Cold Springs Road, which I do a lot, every time I drive up, there's a new aspect of the campus. I mean, it continues to grow and grow as a university. I love the fact that I think that Marian has really utilized and understood the importance and the marriage of athletics to profile that and to make the university, to get not only for alumni to come back, but also to promote the university. And the university has grown along with, it's a symbiotic relationship with athletics with it, right? So having said all of that, I love the atmosphere. The game day atmosphere is always good over there. And if people are going to come out that are not as familiar with Marian and just want to be able to see local talent and watch the Knights play, they're going to see what style of football, notably offensively.
Offensively, they're going to see a balanced attack. We have a really good running back in Keegan LaBelle. We got to be able to run the football. We have a dynamic, receiving core. Jake Reichert leading the way there, and a really good leader the last 2 years, Tristan Polk at quarterback, who who also can throw the ball, but also is underrated in his running game. So those are some of the things that you'll see offensively.
You know what I love about it is when you've got a receiver, as you mentioned, in Jake Reichert from Plymouth, Indiana, and he's catching a ball from Tristan Polkus from Floyd Central High School, you've got the whole state covered there. I mean, literally, you're going southern into the state, northern into the state. You guys are covering everywhere trying to get kids to Marian, right?
Yeah, we always have. We always started in the city, obviously, but then we branch out from there, and we're hitting other states as well. But, yeah, we've always wanted, start in home for sure.
Chris Keevers is well established now at UND as well. He's, a Greyhound alum and is the head of that program. You guys will be tussling tomorrow night, 6 o'clock, over at Ascension St. Vincent Field at Marian. What jumps out at you about UND, and why is this a good starting matchup for you guys?
Well, first off, Chris is a Purdue alum. He played at Purdue.
I'm sorry. I was,
yeah.
But he coached under Bart, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, sorry, that's what I remember that. Yeah.
That's all good. Me and Chris actually played against each other in college. He played at Purdue, I at Northwestern. So, we actually squared. We're both defensive linemen, about the same age. But what sticks out to me is that obviously they're well coached. He's done an excellent job there. They're really touting their offense, and they do have a good offense. They got most of their offensive line back. They're a seasoned group. Their quarterback, has been a two-time conference, first-team all-conference guy up for the Harlan Hill. So he's a dynamic. He can make plays passing and running. So, they're a dangerous offense, and we really have to work to contain them and put pressure on the quarterback.
Do you guys ever, just in general, like you and Chris, for example, going back, right? And obviously he's been in the area. If I'm not mistaken, I think he went to Marshall, so he's an Indy guy. But when do you guys ever, over the course of a season, whether it be Chris Keevers or any other coaches in the area, do you guys ever pick each other's brains and just call up, especially if you're in different leagues, but just to say, I've been working on this, or this team does this differently, and you guys have seen somebody that runs that style or that kind of a system. How much, I guess, fraternal order is there within coaches of scouting things out or working things out or experimenting and picking one's brain over the course of a season?
I think that varies from coach to coach. Me and Chris haven't talked a lot about that, but I think some of our assistants have, when we weren't playing each other. And I just think that varies. But, yeah, there's that fraternal order, like you say. I've talked to Coach Feminist at St. Xavier. He's played them a few times, gave me some insights of what he thought. So that definitely goes on.
3 of the first 4 games are going to be home games for Marian. It all gets underway against the University of Indianapolis. And, again, that game at 6:05 tomorrow night. Then it's on the road to take on Lawrence Tech. And then Defiance and Indiana Wesleyan. There's a gap there on the 20th. But Indiana Wesleyan, and notably, will be a big game as well on the 27th of September. That's always a big one out at Ascension St. Vincent Field. Coach, appreciate the time as always. We look forward to talking to you over the course of the year. And I know you guys always put together a successful season, and heck, we'll probably be talking maybe eyes on the playoffs towards the end of the year, but a lot of football between now and then starts tomorrow night. Wish you the best of luck.
Thanks, Jake. Appreciate you having me on.
I appreciate it. Ted Karras joining us from Marian University again tomorrow night against the University of Indianapolis. Now, Eddie, you mentioned when you were a Greyhound yourself, you went to a lot of the games, right?
Oh, yes, Jake. Went to a lot of them.
Were you a big tailgate guy?
Well, I was calling most of the games.
I guess you were. Did you call your last 2 years, or just your last year, or all 4?
3 of them. My sophomore.
Did you ever tailgate
two
before
and a
you called
half,
a game?
technically. No, never.
Come on now.
I was being I was being a responsible professional, Jake. I had to go in there early in the morning.
What caused you to stop that mentality?
Oh, what do you mean? I don't know what you're saying.
We come in here. It's all about having fun, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
When you would get ready to call a game,
yeah,
you didn't, kidding aside, you took it serious and you handled it because you didn't want to fail at it, right?
Right.
You were driven by the fear of failure. That to me was one of the things that Chris Ballard said earlier that surprised me in his answer. I'm going to go back to it. I can appreciate what he was saying, but I was surprised by his answer. We'll play for you a couple other things Chris Ballard had to say, and I really would like to know your folks' reaction to what you heard from Chris Ballard. Anything that surprised you, anything that didn't surprise you, your level of optimism going into the year. 239-1070. We played for you the Chris Ballard press conference. It wrapped up just about 25 minutes ago. I want reaction from the Colts. And maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe I'm being too cynical or too harsh on what I thought was his approach there and the things that he said. 239-1070, your reaction. I'd like to have that conversation next. I thought it was interesting that Chris Ballard said that he has not had a lot of conversation with Anthony Richardson, but he's had a lot of talks with Anthony Richardson's agent.
The trust, Jake.
The agent that said that they were losing trust in the Colts. But why, if Anthony Richardson is not on the trade block and he is a secure member of the future of the Indianapolis Colts, for what reason would Chris Ballard need to have a lot of conversations with the agent of Anthony Richardson? I'd like to know reaction to what you folks heard from Chris Ballard, and we'll just kind of go in order here. We will begin with Kenny, who joins us on the show. Hi, Kenny. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you, Jake?
I'm good, thank you. Your thoughts?
As far as Anthony goes, man, I think he's a great dude. I don't know if he can lead our team, but if you remember right, last year when they set him down, when he came back, he did have two games that he played really good, New England and the Jets. So maybe, I don't know if anybody said this yet, but maybe it's their plan to make him set. And then when he comes in, maybe he's got a shot to see if he can actually make a move and actually do something from sitting on his butt watching somebody play the game.
Right. That's fair. That's fair. I mean, obviously it's, a redirect of the approach, right? Because initially it was you're the starter, and then, that's fair. Now, it comes a little late in the game for that redirection, but it's probably a better adjustment, better, now than never, I guess. Is it Dan? Is that right?
Den.
Hey, Den, what's up?
Hey there. I'm not sure what consensus is. I was just tuning in there. But with Chris Ballard, to me it kind of sounds like he's flailing, right? I mean, he was being snappy with some of the reporters there. Seemed a little pent up and just ready to move on, and saying that he's not under pressure. He just goes day by day, and that's kind of the stuff we've been hearing for 10 years. So overall, not super impressed. I'm just curious, what's going on behind the scenes.
It's a good question, Den, and let's play for you one more time. Eddie, let's play again at the end when James Boyd asked the question of whether or not Chris Ballard feels pressure or, now in year number 9 and with obviously Carly Ursay-Gordon, and we don't know the exact mindset of the daughters in general. And Chris Ballard, this is how he answered that question about the pressure of his job.
I care deeply about this organization and city, okay? The fans, the way they treat you, they're great. Now I got a few emails that were nasty, but I always wonder if that's from what basement is some dude writing that from. But saying that, I just don't roll that way. I never have. I never rolled that way where I worry about, what the future holds. I'm fortunate to work in the National Football League. I've always been grateful, and I will never take one day for granted, whatever the role. This is a unique place. I could have to go get a real job for a living. That would suck. That would really suck. So no pressure in that way. No.
Again, I go back to I can appreciate and respect his perspective. I do. But at the same time, sports are a bit unique because I think you find most people that are uberly successful in it, the competitive nature of it, is driven by a desire to not fail. Instead of, I just don't roll that way. Mitch. My man Mitch, what's up?
Hey, Jake, how are you?
I'm all right.
Good. I just was calling to tell you that I don't think you're overreacting at all. He's saying the same sorry stuff he's said every year.
As a fan, Mitch, what is your reaction to it? As a fan, is it like, okay, I mean, I get it. What more is he going to say? Or are there other things you want to hear from him?
Yeah, there's definitely other things, and it's just very disappointing. He like I said, it's the same stuff he says every year, and there's no accountability. And he says, yeah, it would suck to get a real job. Well, yeah, but he's getting paid, every year.
I'll tell you this, Mitch. This is funny. Somebody sent me this, okay, and I had to laugh at it. But somebody sent me a screen grab of what was posted on the X-Post Twitter last week by somebody. Said next week, this was written last week, okay? Next week, Chris Ballard will talk to the media. Here's my prediction as to what he says. All right, look, I know we got questions about the quarterback competition. We're not giving up on AR. We just aren't. Like Shane said, he's one play away. He just needs more time to develop and learn, and he's got a great opportunity to do that from the sidelines under Daniel, who we believe gives us the best chance to win right now. I mean, shoot, I wouldn't have signed him if I didn't think he would. Anyway, we won't give up on AR. He's close, but just not close enough. And whoever started That rumor that we're trading him, that's all BS. Typical league, unnamed sources. Put your name on it. Put your name on it. But we still believe in AR. Trust me, we do. Smirks in confidence and laughs. That is the most accurate, dead-on prediction ever. Very impressive. All right, we'll do rapid fire here. I want your thoughts on it. We'll begin with Matt. Matt, your thoughts. Go.
I was appalled when he said he had to get a real job. I mean, this is a privileged job. You work harder to keep this. And he sat there and gave a Kamala Harris word salad over and over and over again. I mean, it was just appalling. It was ridiculous. Time to go.
All right, Cliff. What's up, Cliff?
Hey, Jake. How you doing?
Good. Your thoughts?
Hey, I get really tired of the smugness. He stands up there as if the city owes him something. The Thursdays owe him something. He's not a likable guy. There's not any real reason for him to be liked. He didn't come from this organization. He came from the Chiefs. The Chiefs have continued to excel after he left. He hasn't done anything to prove himself here, and yet he still stands up there and is smug as ever, and it just gets tiresome.
Appreciate it. Todd, you're up.
To my knowledge, he's not required to have this news conference, but, boy, you wouldn't know it by listening to him. Just had the attitude. Are we signing Alex Smith anytime soon?
Yeah, he was high on Alex Smith, right? I mean, I get the comparison he was making, right?
Yeah. I think the other thing is he's sometimes preemptive and kind of falls on the sword a little bit about his past history, but it's like he's falling on a letter opener, not a saber. I think that's deflective as well. So, anyhow, I'll let somebody else go.
Appreciate it, Todd. All right, Steve, your thoughts?
Yep. I've never heard Ballard sound more arrogant than he did today. I think you were totally right in taking him to task, and I'm hoping that James and Kevin do it in the morning. He sounded like he has everything in the world figured out when he's got no track record to back it up, and him talking about getting emails and him not liking the emails must be from some dude in a basement somewhere just shows the arrogance that anyone that might disagree with him is just some loser sitting in a basement.
Steve, let me ask you this question, and I'm genuinely curious of this. When, as I was listening to it, I thought it was interesting that he closed his press conference by saying that he doesn't feel pressure and doesn't roll that way, because to me he sounded like a guy under immense pressure that felt like the walls were caving in.
I would agree. It sounds like he's being his true self, because he's always kind of sounded arrogant and he's always said, oh, I don't feel pressure. But now that the pressure is really on, and we all know that it is, he's getting the harder questions from the media. Everyone's sort of taking him to task on the fact that he's done nothing as the GM in 9 freaking years. And he's being his true self. He's letting his guard down a little bit, and he's sounding like the arrogant jerk that he actually does come off to be. And it's just.
And I'm glad, Steve, here's the thing. I'm glad you said comes off to be, because to be fair, I don't know that he is that way personally. I have heard great stories about Chris Ballard in terms of his interactions with people in the general public, that he is I've heard stories of him being a really nice guy. I just, in that situation, I did not think he handled it well. Kevin will round us out. Hi, Kevin, your thoughts?
I'm sick of it. I'm over it. He swung and missed on AR. Now we got to watch this clown show for 17 weeks again this year. Another 8-win season right in the middle of the pack. It's time for Ballard to go. I'm out.
Appreciate it. I thought the thing that was, and listen, I'm sure if you're Chris Ballard, you probably were. I mean, at the point where he said, like, look, are we going to ask about any other players on the roster? And I know that he had said he was never going to make it about one player, that the National Football League was about more than one player on the roster. And I think that's always kind of, for Ballard, I think that the quarterback position, it was in his best interest when he took the job and he had an elite level talent in Andrew Luck. And he came out and said, football's about more than one player on the roster. And he's not wrong in that, but the quarterback's the most important player. But I think at that time, what Chris Ballard wanted to make sure that people were aware of is that there were other players on the roster, because if the Colts were going to be successful, he wanted the credit to also be for his ability to build the roster around Andrew Luck. And he wanted, and I get it. I'm not saying that he's wrong there or that mindset is wrong. He wanted to make sure that people knew that he could build around Andrew Luck and that there was more to it than just the one guy, and that you needed competency around the quarterback. Now, 9 years later, when you fail and you swing and a miss at your quarterback, you want to make sure that everybody knows there are other players on the roster, because you don't want the attention and the focus being on the fact that in the most important draft pick of your tenure, you missed. And sure, we can still say, and he can still say, be patient, be patient, be patient. But he began it by saying that Anthony Richardson has come miles. And if he's come miles, then that means that he is a more improved and a miles better version of the player that he was when he was a starter. So why was he a starter then? And if he is an exponentially more grown and better player now, why can he not win the job now? There's an inconsistency of message there. And if you have not talked to Anthony Richardson, but you've had a lot of talk with his agent, and you're not trading him, and the agent comes out and says, we don't trust the Colts, I would imagine a lot of those talks were explanatory talks. But I just thought, I understand Ballard's frustration with getting asked the same questions over and over. I can appreciate that and respect it. But at the same time, he had to know that was coming. And I have always stated and said that while I can appreciate and respect and understand why it would get old dealing with questions of people whose job it is to question the manner in which you go about your profession, that would get old, admittedly, and I would get tired of it too. But at the same time, the men and women in that room asking the questions to Chris Ballard are the liaison between Chris Ballard and the fan base. And when he is speaking to Stephen Holder, and he's speaking to James Boyd, and he's speaking to Kevin Bowen, and he's speaking to Bob Kravitz, he's not just speaking to those men, he's speaking to the fans who want to hear the answer to what those men are asking. And when you try to belittle the legitimacy of their question, you are in fact insulting, in my opinion, the passion of that fan base. And that's where he errs. I say what you want about, like, Kevin Pritchard didn't do a lot of talking this year, but when he did, I don't think that he took that same approach. And it hasn't always been gumdrops and lollipops for the Pacers either. Don't get me wrong, right? But I just thought in that situation, he had a chance to go out there and really get people excited for the year, and I thought he erred. I just did. And I don't think he's a bad guy. I don't. I kind of get it. But I thought in that situation he erred. Rhett Lewis next. Is that right, Eddie?
That is right.
Rhett Lewis will join us next. It would appear, based on the reaction that I've gotten, that, and I totally get what Chris Ballard was saying when he's like, look, if this doesn't work out, I'd have to go get a real job, and that would suck. I totally get what he was saying, and I think he was trying to say it, meaning, to illuminate that he is aware of how fortunate he is to be in the NFL, but that did not set well with a lot of fans. I think there were a lot of people that are like, well, I do work a real job, 40 hours a week, and put in a lot of money, and I've got to determine whether or not to go spend it on your football team, and I think that rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. But the NFL getting underway a week from this weekend, obviously, at least from the Colts standpoint. But this weekend, college football getting underway in earnest. There are games taking place all over the place. So what better person to talk to than Rhett Lewis, who, of course, you can see on NFL Network. You also see him doing Big Ten coverage. He will have USC. And who did you say USC is playing, Eddie?
Missouri State.
Missouri State and USC coming up. So Rhett joining us on the program, and a pleasure as always. Rhett, I'm going to give you recipient's choice on blackjack here. Do you want to start on the college side or the pro side with our conversation?
Let's start college side, man. It's game week, right?
It is.
And that gets me fired up. And we got the Hoosiers at the Rock on Saturday against Old Dominion, and fired up for that one. I'll get a chance to watch it before USC Mo State kicks off. So, man, can't wait. A lot of anticipation, a lot of excitement.
Okay, let's begin with talking about Indiana itself. I mean, a year ago, the conversation was just about the overall bravado of Curt Cignetti, and then Indiana backed that up, obviously. And now it's funny because Cignetti's kind of become like this spokesperson for the Big Ten coaches when he talks about scheduling, and everybody's like, yeah, what he said. It's like he's become this kind of face of the conference, which I like. But in terms of backing up after the big year that Indiana had, what is your expectation here of how they carry over what they did a year ago?
I mean, they've already set the standard, so anything less would be unexpected for me. And that's not to say that they're going to win 11 games, but to me, like the way they played, the way they beat up on teams that they were supposed to beat, and now I think the next piece of that is playing better in the biggest games, right? Against Ohio State a year ago, against Notre Dame on the road, both those teams. You're going to have that opportunity this year when the two toughest teams on your schedule are road games at Autzen Stadium at Oregon, and then, of course, in Happy Valley to play Penn State. By the way, quick trivia for you, Jake. Do you know who the last Big Ten team was to win at Autzen Stadium in Eugene, Oregon?
I actually do know that. It was Indiana, but it was before Oregon was a Big Ten team, right?
God dang it, yes, that's correct. And I was on that team, and I was in that number, and on that field at Autzen in 2004, forced, I think, 6 takeaways in that game and scored a kick return touchdown. But I digress. I just think that there is the standard is what we saw last year, right? And now it's how much can you raise the bar this year? That's what I'm looking for, right? How much better are you going to be in the biggest games? How much more, to even break it down even further, can you give Fernando Mendoza a little bit more time than Curtis Rourke had? Can Elijah Surratt beat man coverage a little bit more than he did against Notre Dame and against Ohio State? Can you do those things that will elevate your play overall to put you in a better spot to win those big games?
When you look at the Big Ten, Rhett, Indiana a year ago, one could certainly – there were so many things that fell Indiana's way, but give Indiana credit, right? I mean, they had to go out and win games. When you look this year – one of the fun things that I enjoy doing is trying to look at the conference and find out, okay, who is this year's Indiana? Maybe it's Indiana that's this year's Indiana, right? I mean, but aside from that, is there a team that when you look at it, you say, people might be sleeping on this program, but they're kind of quietly putting something together here, and the schedule is favorable for them where they could make some noise? Anybody jump out at you?
Yeah, I think people have immediately been drawn to Brett Bielema's Illinois squad, but they don't qualify to me because they're getting all kinds of hype.
Correct.
Right? I mean, they're top 15 in the country at this point, which is a little rich for me. We'll see what that looks like week 4 at the Rock for Indiana, Illinois, which, by the way, is essentially a CFP entrance exam to me as you get going in the conference schedule. The team that I would say, it's tough because Indiana was picked 17th last year, and ended up whatever it was, third in the conference. So I don't know that I'm picking Purdue to light that torch this year. I don't know that it's going to be Northwestern. I would say, to me, a team that is maybe a little bit under the radar, that should be talked about a little bit more in the landscape of being a college football playoff contender, a contender to win 10-ish games, once we're into November, is Minnesota. I think Minnesota is really good. I think they got one of the top 3 running backs in this conference in Darius Taylor. They're breaking in a new quarterback, but they got really good coaches on the offensive and defensive side of the ball. Say what you want about PJ Fleck, but he is authentically himself, and it resonates within that program. I've seen it. I think Minnesota could kind of ruffle some feathers in the Big Ten this year.
Rhett, I'll be honest. I think PJ Fleck, from the time that he was at Western Michigan and came into Minnesota, I think that there was the expectation that, oh, man, he's going to have an impact right away. And maybe he's been a slower, and they've been kind of patient with it. But I think he's I really like him as a coach because to me, he has like a tactical approach that is where it's like things get cleaned up and they don't play sloppy and shoot themselves in the foot a lot. And now it's just a matter of shoring together talent to go with that. Is that a fair assessment of Minnesota?
Yeah, definitely. And the other thing I'll say is, he's hired really good coaches, really good coordinators. Greg Harbaugh Jr. is one of the best offensive coordinators that nobody's heard of yet. He does a really good job of getting quarterbacks going. Obviously got Max Brosmer going last year in less than a calendar year that he spent on campus after transferring in from the FCS. By the way, Brosmer made the Vikings 53-man roster as an undrafted free agent. So, there's something good there, and he's got that opportunity to do that with a really talented kid in their quarterback this year, Drake Lindsey. I just think that he knows how to rally a program. He knows how to galvanize a group of young men. He cares about the right things. And there's some stuff that some people look at as shticky, right? With slogans and sayings and whatever, but it works. And I think they've got an opportunity this year to really, have some upward mobility.
I realize, Rhett Lewis, this does not include Indiana and Purdue, but it is the conference. You've got USC coming up this weekend. They're fascinating to me because when you think SC, you automatically think fall out of bed, you're a top 10 program. But last year was rough for them. Where do things stand for SC?
Well, unranked for the first time in a long time in a preseason poll, but I think anybody who follows Indiana knows preseason polls are kind of whatever, right? And I agree with that. I think they're going to be better than they were a year ago. I think they are, to me, Jake, one of 11 teams in this conference that could find their way into college football playoff contention in November. Now, a lot of that hinges on the play of quarterback Jaden Maiava, who started 4 games last year, won 3 of them, including a bowl game and a last-second touchdown pass for the victory against Texas A&M. Pretty damn good team there. He's got to be better. He's got to be a lot better. He threw 4 touchdowns and 3 picks in that game. You take the picks out, we're talking about really winning football here. Lincoln's always done well with quarterbacks. Last year was maybe a bit of the exception, so we'll see. Their defense is really good. Danton Lynn is going to be a head coach in college football next year, if he wants to be. He's very well compensated as a defensive coordinator at SC, and he's one of the best in the country, and that defense is only going to get better this year. So I think, this is a game that USC should win, has got to win, and then we'll see down the road, when they get some tougher opponents here, what they really look like.
Rhett Lewis is our guest, talking about the Big Ten and National Football League as well. All right, I'm ready to jump into the NFL here, Rhett. You ready?
Let's do it.
All right, let's begin, obviously, with the Colts. The situation at quarterback itself and Daniel Jones coming in, and I think, Chris Ballard earlier today in his press conference said that Daniel Jones' approach reminds him of Alex Smith and what Alex Smith did in Kansas City. And I get that. Quarterbacks sometimes, change of scenery, change of expectation can make a difference. And Jones gets that job over Richardson. Do you look at that more as Daniel Jones won that job or Anthony Richardson lost it?
It's a complicated question because I think, the protection gaffe that the whole world saw in the first week of the preseason, and again, it's tough to kind of look past that. But from the other side, it's also like that's basic stuff. Like, sure, maybe it's one mistake in the landscape of the game, but it gets you hurt, makes you unavailable. And I think, to me, it really comes down to trust and consistency, as Shane Steichen said, but professionalism. Trust and professionalism. I think they have a higher degree of trust that Daniel Jones is going to be available for the team for the duration of the season, and that he's going to do things proactively to protect that availability. Now, look, freak injuries happen. It happened to Daniel Jones a couple of years ago with the ACL. But I think there's a greater trust that they're going to have more continuity on offense because he's going to be out there. And then I think, the professionalism thing comes back to what his teammates said about him when the decision was made. I mean, I thought one of the overwhelming themes inside that Colts locker room was talking about Daniel's work ethic, talking about, how he holds guys accountable for what he needs, what they need to be doing to be successful in any given play. So I think that stuff right now is just where Daniel Jones is. And that's not to say that Richardson won't get there, as Chris Ballard mentioned today. But if Daniel Jones plays well, I don't see any further path to a starting job for Richardson here in Indy. So I think it's a kind of a complicated situation.
Rhett, when you were a player, did you find that getting the respect of your teammates then allows you to begin holding them accountable, or holding your teammates accountable then allows them to respect you?
No, it's the other way around. You got to earn that. And I think you earn it by, talking to guys about it in the right way, and saying, hey, look, I need you here. I need you to make this step instead of that step. I need you to go at this depth instead of that depth. And then when it works, you're like, okay, I get it now, right? This guy knows what he's doing. And I think you earn that trust with your work ethic. I think you earn that trust with your availability. So I think in my experience, the quarterback that commands the locker room is the one that has earned it, and not just tried to do it from the jump.
Do you think there are guys?
Yeah.
I mean, have you seen situations either on a team that you're on or when you assess a team where the starting quarterback might not be the most talented quarterback, but he's the one that is the best leader amongst the quarterback room?
Yeah, I mean, I could probably take you back to and this is not the best example because it didn't ultimately lead to success, but I think if you think back to when Indiana was deciding between Jack Tuttle and Connor Bazelak, I think there was a potential with talent that kind of led Connor to get that job. But I think that there was the majority of that locker room was prepared for Jack Tuttle to be the starting quarterback that year. And I think that they maybe connected more with him. They'd been around him for a longer period of time. That's kind of part of the deal in college football now. I actually asked Curt Cignetti about this with Fernando Mendoza. I was like, have you seen the ways in which Fernando has connected with all corners of the locker room? Because that, to me, is when you kind of earn that inherent leadership role as QB1, is when everybody else really rallies behind you. Look at Jackson Dart in New York. Have you watched the way that his teammates love that dude, that they play for that dude, that they celebrate that guy when he goes out there and makes plays? That stuff is real. And while it is, quote unquote, an intangible, I do think it has a tangible effect on the success of a team.
Yeah, it's interesting when you look at young quarterbacks, and I think that's the thing, Rhett, with Anthony Richardson. Earlier today, Chris Ballard met with the media, and he was talking. Rhett Lewis is our guest. He was talking about Richardson, and he was saying Richardson's just he's come miles from where he was when he first arrived, essentially, which is peculiar to me because what's that?
But miles still to go.
Correct. But what's peculiar to me is you're saying that he has come miles in terms of his growth, but the place where he started seemingly was good enough for you to determine that he's a starter, and now miles later he can't win the job. So that is an admission of error in the way that you handled this from the beginning. In your opinion, can that be salvaged at this point?
I think, look, I mean, Chris Ballard knows better than anybody. Shane Steichen knows better than anybody what the true feelings are there. And I don't know that those ever really get shared in public. But at this point, I would find it very difficult to believe that there is a path forward for Anthony Richardson to be a starting quarterback for the Colts. I just think that this is one of those situations, look, a la Daniel Jones, right, who has rediscovered himself as a starter in this league after, kind of making the rounds after the Giants and then going to Minnesota and ending up in Indy. Like, that could be the path for Anthony. And maybe that's best. Maybe that's best for all parties. I think it's always hard when you consider the resources that you use to acquire that player, being the 4th overall pick in a draft. You knew the risks. We all know the risks of taking a quarterback that high, especially one with minimal experience at the college level. But I find it hard to believe. Now, look, something happens with Daniel Jones. They turn the ball over a bunch in the first 4 games. Maybe Anthony comes in and maybe the 4 games were really good for him. Kind of the way that they were for Bryce Young last year with the Panthers, came back in second half of the season, man, was a different player. And now we're talking about him as being the face of the franchise again. I guess that would be possible. But if Daniel Jones plays this entire season, I just don't see any way that Richardson remains a viable QB1 with this franchise.
I was thinking about this, Rhett. Can you imagine the worst case scenario of the Colts go ahead and start Daniel Jones all year? He has a Sam Darnold bounce back effect or the Alex Smith in Kansas City or Washington effect. And then as a result, some other franchise comes along and offers him like $22 million and signs him away, and the Colts are right back to square one again. Who knows, right? I mean, stranger things have happened. All right, USC and Missouri State, you will have that game on Saturday.
Yep.
Before we let you go, give me a couple of other games that you have your eye on that maybe you won't be able to even see it, but you're like, man, I'm going to go back and look at it because I can't wait to see what takes place.
Well, obviously it's Ohio State and Texas. That is top billing for me in the big new kickoff slot. You got the battle for the real Death Valley between Clemson and LSU, which I think is going to be a great one. 2 potential first-round picks at quarterback right there in Cade Klubnik for Clemson and Garrett Nussmeier for LSU. Those 2 really rule the day for me there. Obviously, I'll have my eyes on IU and Old Dominion. Really excited about what Fernando Mendoza is going to bring to this offense. I think he can take it to another level than what we saw a year ago, which would really, raise an already high bar. But those are the 3 that I'll be watching whenever I can. Obviously, we've got a 4:30 Pacific time kick, so it's 30 Eastern time kick at the Coliseum on Saturday night, and excited for that one. But man, it's going to be a great day of college football, and then we get to come right back at it and get the double dose on Saturday, and then starting Thursday, welcome to the 2025 NFL season.
Rhett, I'm a diehard. This has nothing to do with sports talk in Indianapolis, but for what it's worth, I'm a huge Clemson fan, have been a season ticket holder for Clemson football, and that is the real Death Valley, by the way, just so you know.
Okay, I'm from New Orleans. Grew up in the shadows of Tiger Stadium, so I don't know if I could agree with you on that.
Who wins on Saturday?
Oh, it's the Tigers, brother. It's the Tigers. Garrett Nussmeier is going to out.
No, it's the Tigers. I know, right?
Right.
In all honesty,
that's the fun of it.
Listen, kidding aside, Rhett, the reality is this: in terms of, and it's ridiculous to say this before Labor Day, but in terms of the college football playoff landscape, LSU, it would be better served for LSU to win it and get on that right path, because Clemson, I think, could lose that game and still, if it's tight,
still win the ACC.
ACC outright and still put themselves in very good position. But listen, I like LSU too. I mean, that is a fabulous. Baton Rouge is beautiful. That campus is awesome, and that would be an awesome place to watch a game as well. So it should be a lot of fun, no question about it.
Yeah. By the way, hat tip to our guy, to Tom Allen, DC there at Clemson. Like, when he laid his head on the pillow, 20 years ago, he dreamt of having a defense this talented as he does at Clemson here. So excited to see it put it all together there.
A lot of talent on both sides of that football. It's going to be a lot of fun. And then Texas, Ohio State, a big one, and USC and Missouri State as well. Rhett, appreciate it, man.
Yeah, thanks, brother.
All right, Rhett Lewis joining the program here with us. All right, let's get back into it. In terms of the Chris Ballard press conference earlier today, there are a couple of other things I think we should touch on. I mean, he definitely answered questions about Anthony Richardson. There were other things that he discussed, but not a lot. I mean, it was a lot of quarterback fire and just overall fire in about a 25 or 30-minute session from Chris Ballard. If you did not hear it, we will let you hear some of what he had to say, and we'll do it next. Thank you to Rhett Lewis for his time. Ted Karras Jr. as well today. Tom Dienhart. All of those will be available in podcast form. We ask that you wait until after John's show before listening to that so that you are still listening to the radio station. I am sure that John will be talking plenty about, as will the guys in the morning, the Chris Ballard press conference from earlier today. There are several things to unpack from that. Notably, the questions that were asked about Anthony Richardson. And that was the first thing that basically came out. He knew right off the top, hey, listen, there are a lot of questions about the quarterback spot. Let's get right to it, etc. And he talked about Anthony Richardson sitting behind Daniel Jones and what exactly he anticipates for Anthony Richardson now with Daniel Jones being the starter at the quarterback position.
I think following Daniel and watching him work, and if he continues with the growth that he's had, like Anthony's been good. He has, and he's made tremendous strides. Is he there yet? No. But does he have work to do? Yes. And Anthony will acknowledge that. Like, I'm really proud of I mean, it's like one of the fun parts of this job is watching guys just start to really mature. And I know everybody thinks that a 20, 21, 22-year-old young man should be a grown man, all right, in everything they do. But that's not the case in any world. With anything you're doing in life. Like, these are young people, and it takes some time. So to watch him grow and to continue to mature and then to handle the adversity. Like, there's two ways you can handle this. Like, you can go in the dumps or you can accept the challenge. And accept the challenge to keep getting better, be prepared, continue to work on your fundamentals, continue to work on the daily game planning that has to happen as a quarterback, to collaborate with the other quarterbacks in your game planning, and then being ready to go because you're one snap away. That's real. That is real. And that's a natural development. I know you want me to sit here and give you an A to B plan. Look, it's about daily, everyday work and doing it without the pressure of being the starter.
Later, he was asked on whether or not he has talked to Anthony Richardson and the Anthony Richardson competition.
I've not had a lot of talks with AR, but I've had a lot of talks with his agent. The coaching staff handles, they talk to Anthony a bunch. I mean, I've talked to Anthony. Because the one thing I think is getting overshadowed a little bit is Daniel. Because I let both of them competed, professional, battled to the end. And at the end of the day, Daniel, won the job. Does that mean we're down on Anthony? No. But I don't want to, dismiss that, Daniel he's had a good run here. It reminds me a lot of Alex Smith that we had in Kansas City, who I thought was just the ultimate professional. Day in and day out, the team knew exactly what they were getting, and I feel that's kind of the same thing with Daniel. So, I know the story's always been about Anthony, but also let's don't lose sight of, Daniel did some good things, and he's been a really good professional. He's been through a lot. And then going to Anthony, like, I know the negativity, and it's easy to say, okay, he's done, and I don't agree. I've said this numerous times. I do not agree with that. I think overcoming challenges and obstacles along the way are good for anybody. I do. I'm proud of Anthony, of where he's at, how far he's come. He's come miles. I mean, I want you to think back, and it's tough on any young quarterback in this league, but for him to keep taking the growth steps that he has and to work so hard and then not get the goal for himself, all right, now to continue to do that, that's when we got a chance to see real growth. And there's some value, there's a lot of value in sitting behind a guy that's a professional and watching and learning and growing and working on the things you need to work on without the same pressure of being the starter. There's a lot of good to that.
I'm going to be a broken record here because I've been saying it all day, but I hear that and I'm going to say it again. When Chris Ballard says that Anthony Richardson, has been overcoming obstacles and he's come miles, and he talks about his growth, I can appreciate that. But if he has come miles, then that means he is miles removed from what he was when he first came into the league. And yet miles removed from where he first came into the league is not good enough to win the starting job for the Indianapolis Colts. But where he was when he first came into the league was good enough to be the starter right away. That means either this is an overcorrection from a colossal mistake and misjudgment and misevaluation of Anthony Richardson, or it was putting too much trust in a young quarterback because you were not patient enough to let it organically play out. So for those reasons, I think it's challenging to ask your fan base to trust the process and be patient because you failed in both of those areas. You can't have it both ways. And there's an inconsistency there that I think people should be upset with. I think people should be upset with the plan that Chris Ballard was asked whether or not fans should believe in.
I don't know how to answer why should people believe. Like, I think you know the answer. They believe when you win. If you don't, they don't believe. Like, it wouldn't matter who was a quarterback. They wouldn't believe. If you didn't win, they're not going to believe. If you win, they give you a little more benefit of the doubt, and then y'all help put doubt to make sure there's questions being asked. That's the only way I know how to answer that one. I don't know what you want me to say.
When all else fails, blame the people asking the questions. I mean, that's how that comes off. I'm sorry, it does. I'm not trying to be overly defensive of the media in the room by claiming that the guy answering the questions is being overly defensive, but that's what I'm doing. Because I thought at times he reverted back into like the Ballard smirk and laughter and the little subtle shots, right? And I think he has to be aware of the fact that fans are running out of patience. They just are. How many times do we need to be told to be patient? How many times do we need to be asked to believe further? It's year number 9. It's year 9 since the Colts last won this division, which is the most mediocre division in the NFL. Who in the AFC South as a divisional winner has struck fear in the rest of the league? Houston? Yeah. Jacksonville? Ugh. Tennessee? Ugh. And yet each of those franchises has won twice the division since the Colts last won one. And you've won a playoff game. And then when you're asked about whether or not you feel pressure or a hot seat on your job, and this is the part that most got to me, and it ended the press conference today. And yes, the majority of the press conference was about the quarterback position. It's the most important position in sports. It's the most important position on the roster. It's the one that you kicked the can forever and then finally had to go out and get a guy, and the guy that you got, you now are telling us, has come miles from where he was when you selected him, but the miles from where he was when you selected him is still not good enough to be a starter in the National Football League. So why should we trust the evaluations of players coming out immediately after the combine? But then Chris Ballard was asked, and I believe it was our James Boyd that asked the question of whether or not he feels pressure about his job and for his job.
I care deeply about this organization and city, okay? The fans, the way they treat you, they're great. Now I got a few emails that were nasty, but I always wonder if that's from what basement is some dude writing that from. But saying that, I just don't roll that way. I never have. I never rolled that way where I worry about, what the future holds. I'm fortunate to work in the National Football League. I've always been grateful, and I will never take one day for granted, whatever the role. This is a unique place. I could have to go get a real job for a living. That would suck. That would really suck. So no pressure in that way. No.
I understand what he's saying there, but I'm going to go back to this. What separates good players from great players? When Kobe Bryant, and I wasn't a Kobe Bryant fan, but one of the stories that came out about Kobe Bryant after he passed was and I don't remember if I was reading this or if I saw it on television, whatever it was, but it was literally like a high school custodian in, I think it was New Jersey. And he said, "Oh yeah, I knew Kobe Bryant well. You're the custodian at like St. Anthony's High School in, Camden, New Jersey or whatever. How in the world did you know Kobe Bryant?" And he said, "Well, the Lakers were in town to play, whether it be the Nets or the Knicks. I don't remember who it was, and I got a phone call from the Lakers, and they said Kobe Bryant would like a gym to work out before practices. And so at 5 o'clock in the morning at this high school, Kobe Bryant would come in on the day of off days or shoot-around days, or when the Lakers would fly in at 1 o'clock in the morning after a game in Charlotte. And Kobe Bryant was up at 5 o'clock in the morning and was in this high school shooting 100 shots a day, running, sprints, whatever else. And you heard there are legendary stories of players that talk about saying, I wanted to prove to Kobe Bryant or to Michael Jordan or guys that had those guys as teammates that I was willing to work hard. And I showed up at the gym at 7, and they were walking off the floor covered in sweat. And why would players that were at the very best, the very top of their game, still be working out to that level? It's because even when they were at the very top, they worried that somebody else was beating them. The fear of failure is what motivates the elite. And I'm not saying that you need to, I can completely respect out of Chris Ballard the perspective there of life in the bigger picture. I totally get it. But at the same time, this is professional sports. You make millions of dollars as an executive because it is a business that is driven by people who do work a regular job, spending their regular money to come out and be supportive. And for that reason, even if you don't think it, the best answer there probably is, yes, I'm driven every day by the drive to succeed. And that's why I'm here. Instead of, I don't worry about it. You should worry about it. You should worry about it. Because people in this town worry about it. And people that pay good money worry about it. And people that make sacrifices for their Sunday worry about it. And I totally understand and respect. And Chris Ballard, I don't know Chris Ballard. I've interacted with him. Doesn't mean that I know him. I've heard very good stories about him as a person in the community. And I respect that. But for somebody that claims that they don't feel the pressure of their job, I thought today he sounded like a guy that was wilting under the pressure of the failures of his job. That's how he sounded. He was defensive. He was at times arrogant. He was condescending. He was, I thought, at times subtle and like taking a swipe. And I do understand a lot of why that would be the case. There's an element of human nature. It doesn't make him a bad person. At times it makes him a flawed one. And in this case, he is flawed in his job. Jake, the fact that the Colts are pseudo-admitting that they made an initial strategic mistake in starting Anthony right out of the bat and his potential to still become a solid player are not mutually exclusive. You seem to be wanting to keep on hammering the fact that they screwed up. Yes, they screwed up. That does not negate the fact that he could potentially be a very good player. Again, I get that. But how many times do you at some point, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. And for Anthony Richardson, how many times are we going to be told, no, this is the time that we're telling you, just wait, like this is where it's going to happen. This is where the wake-up's going to happen. This is where the wake-up's going to happen. You can only go through that and ask your fan base that patience or that redirect or that repause. You can only so many times take out the cartridge, blow on it, and put it back in the Nintendo machine. You can only hit Control-Alt-Reset so many times. You can only hit volume up, volume down, and then hold the start button so many times and wait for the white apple to appear back on your phone so many times before you're like, you know what, this thing might just not be working. And I think that's where a lot of people are. I do. And I get it. I get that for Chris Ballard, you get tired of hearing the question from James Boyd and Kevin Bowen and Bob Kravitz and Stephen Holder. I get it. I totally understand it. But there's also an element of don't shoot the messenger. Until you get, if you have a better message, but it's the same old song and dance. We're in year 9 of this. We literally could have played last year's press conference from the day that the roster was set, and I'll bet you 75% of the audience would not have realized that was from a year ago because maybe the names might be different, but the tune's the same. And that's the part, to me, I just feel like people that pay good money to go down and watch a football team in the most publicly subsidized sports venue in America deserve better. They deserve better analysis, they deserve better prognostication, and they deserve more transparency. Have you ever watched The Wall, by the way, Eddie? The Pink Floyd movie, The Wall?
No. I thought you were I think there was a game show called The Wall at one point.
Oh, yeah, there is.
I thought that's what you were referencing.
Chris Hardwick was the host of The Wall game show, and Chris Hardwick was my 1-week roommate at the MTV Beach House in 1994.
Really?
He was one of the VJs, and I was an intern, and we stayed at a bed and breakfast in Quogue, New York.
Excuse me?
Quogue is a beach town on Long Island, and that's where the MTV Beach House was.
How is that spelled, by the way? Just for...
I believe, okay, hold on. I'm going to go with Quogue. Quogue, New York. It's out near the Hamptons. Is that right?
Quogue.
Uh-huh.
Correct.
I'm very proud of myself for that. Speaking of Long Island, my cousin and I, when we did that trip and went to that concert in England, afterwards my cousin's like, it was really the first time that my cousin and I had done just the two of us done something like that. And so he said, we should, let's do it again. Let's pick another trip. And so we were thinking of things to do, bucket list type things to do together now that we're just, a couple of old guys. And
what about down under?
Boy, that'd be unbelievable, right? But one of the things that I said, and I don't know why I just think it would be so much fun. A lot of people go out to Vegas for the opening round of the NCAA tournament, or people will go, you hear all of those different things. I think one of the most fun things to do would be to just go out to New York City for the U.S. Open. I mean, I was watching it last night until late. I love the U.S. Open. I think it's super cool to watch.
You were watching it last night until late. What's late for you, Jake? 'Cause 2 a.m.
late for them. I mean, it went on till almost 1 o'clock in the morning last night.
Yeah.
It was good. J&B has walked in. By the way, let me do the transition here, the crossover as we call it, like the Tim Hardaway crossover. This is the time of year right now where you kind of get that weather crossover. Like you get up in the morning and it's a little bit chilly, then by the day it's hot, and so you're kind of going back and forth. And we are probably another 6 weeks away from when then you got to make that decision of man, air conditioning, furnace, whatever it might be. And if you're crossing over from one temperature to the next within the house, John, we have the perfect place for you to go to make sure that you have everything up to speed and up to snuff when it comes to the perfect temperature in your home.
Yeah, Love Heating and Air. We know Johnny Chris Love of Love Heating and Air, and they're the sponsor of our Crosstalk. There's a couple of radio nerds out there somewhere that are going, wow, that is so unique and so organic what you created right here.
That's what we're supposed to do, right? Be unique and organic, right?
317-353-2141, love-hvac.com. Today, sponsors our Crosstalk now when we're in studio. Now, do we do that? I can also do this when I'm out, too, if you don't.
Correct.
If you want to. There's no problem in that whatsoever. Hey, you mentioned the U.S. Open as well. George Costanza eating a hot fudge sundae at the U.S. Open.
So I'm going to get that guy a napkin.
He lost his girl because I think she saw that, but no.
And then wasn't Kramer a ball boy for the U.S. Open?
He was a ball boy, and that's when Jerry was going out with Marley Matlin. They took her to the party to read lips.
You should stay after the party and we can sleep together. Cut it.
Do you have a back when tennis was really something and we really cared about it? The Jimmy Connors, 1991?
91, that's right.
U.S. Open when he beat Aaron Crickstein
just
and
a huge run,
his mullet.
Right? Yep.
And pumping up the crowd, which was complete opposite personality as to what Connors was really before that particular moment. But that's always going to be a great moment.
I think that was one of the most iconic moments. It kind of John, I hate to say this, that was kind of the last hurrah for grand, that level of tennis in the grand American landscape, because you were coming out of, just throughout the mid 80s. Maybe I'm saying this because it was the era in which I was watching a lot of tennis, but the Boris Becker and then into Michael Chang, which was kind of in that crossover area as well, Yvonne Lendl and all those guys. But then, and yes, you came into an era of the greatest players probably of all time between Sampras and Federer and Nadal. But the American interest level just seemed to wane greatly.
What has driven us away? Has something taken us away or driven us away?
That is a very good question. Boy, could it be the lack of attention span? Options?
Did we just not have a lot of options back then? Do we miss Pat Summerall doing CBS U.S. Open coverage? Because I would damn straight agree that would be true.
I think all of it, right? And just the lack of, certainly male American star. I know obviously the greatest women's players of all time are American now.
Hey, this date, music history, we're going to celebrate 1991. What album am I talking about?
It's gotta be the release of, I still remember my freshman year of college, Corey Lagerstrom walking in and going, you got to hear this one song, and he put on "Smells Like Teen Spirit." I'm going to guess that it's Nirvana, Nevermind.
It is not, but
Okay.
it's in the same category.
Okay, Pearl Jam 10?
It is.
Okay.
Pearl Jam 10.
So Pearl Jam, Nirvana, Use Your Illusion. There were
Yes.
like 6 of them that came out within like 7 weeks of each other, right?
Blood Sugar Sex Magic, Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Huge.
Metallica, Black.
Huge, yep.
Too,
I mean,
all at the same time.
unbelievable the
Yeah.
run of albums there, right?
So Pearl Jam 10. Once, Even Flow, Alive, Why Go, Black, Jeremy, Oceans, Porch, Garden, Deep, and Release. Now, a couple things stand out here. The one-word titles, absolutely awesome. But what's your favorite song from Pearl Jam's 10?
Open disclaimer.
Yeah.
That while I don't dislike Pearl Jam, and last year when I went to their concert, I was like, I get it. I mean, they put on an unbelievable show. Give me the rundown one more time.
All right. Once, Even Flow, Alive, Why Go, Black, Jeremy, Oceans, Porch, Garden, Deep, and Release.
Okay, it's a tough one, but I would go. I may go Black on that.
I think
Alive is really good too, though.
I mean, Alive, it's hard to beat Alive ever. And there are very few songs that you don't get tired of hearing, and that's one for me. But Black, it's almost like you're glad that you hear it, but it really it's kind of like Hunger Strike to me. It always hits kind of, oh man, that's great.
Yeah, Hunger
and
Strike.
You're glad
to me,
you heard it when it plays,
Totally.
no matter how many times it plays.
Yeah, I mean the beginning of the first 45 seconds of Hunger Strike might be as good a 45 seconds as you could get.
Well,
from
when
a
you
song.
think about it, when you get the voices of Vedder and Chris Cornell together, and then it was so impactful.
Oh,
and it was so perfect the way that
awesome.
they
and
assembled
especially
that.
because it was then released after the fact, right? I
Yeah.
mean, like it was put together, and you're like, these guys were no ones when they put it
Right.
together, and then after the fact, they put it out.
Temple of the Dog. There are very few songs to me that are like Hunger Strike.
I always liked just the single soundtrack. The single soundtrack
Yeah.
had, because I mean, that, again, I don't know, John, that people that were around then can grasp just how. I don't know that we have seen a U.S. city that has had this like overnight rise of relevance like Seattle did in that from those bands and those movies, right? I mean, just that whole
I
era.
wonder if Detroit was similar in Motown long before
Yes,
we
that's
were born.
probably
maybe.
true. I
That
would
would have to be it. But I would agree with that. The fact that Paul Westerberg has a solo song on the singles soundtrack is
that
pretty
Waiting
awesome.
for Somebody? Was that
Waiting
his?
from
Yeah.
Somebody is an awesome song.
great song,
right there.
yep.
And the fact that I think what Vedder and Stone Gossard and Mike McCready, were they all three of those guys were in singles, right? In the band
Yes.
Citizen Dick with Matt Dillon.
That was
at lead.
I mean, the whole everyone was walking around wearing flannels forever. I mean,
oh man,
we went to college when I always say we had the misfortune to an extent of being the era from college, John, that had the grunge era and transitioned. We had the grunge era, and then after that, it was like the Girls Gone Wild and the Britney
Yeah.
Spears era. We missed that one by a couple of years.
Pearl
but
Jam
nonetheless.
10. It's in honor of
Mookie Blaylock, baby.
Blaylock.
First name of the band, right?
That's pretty awesome right
Yeah.
there. You got to admit.
All right, John's up next. I'm sure more on Chris Ballard, and John will be with
And
you until
Love
6 o'clock
Heating
today.
and Air. The sponsor, John and Chris Love of our Crosstalk Daily right here on the Fan. 93.5.
317-353-2141. All right, we'll be back with you at noon tomorrow. I thank you for listening to Aquarian Company.